Ready to have your mind blown? Insane fights, brain-melting twists, and drama that'll steal your heart in a flash. Smash that subscribe button on Manhwa T-Rex now. And hey, dive into today's recap video right this second.
History's dominators, mighty heroes, legends etched in time, or beings of supreme power, transcending all others. They wield unparalleled might, eclipsing everything in their path. A king once forged an empire, a testament to his ambition. He commanded a vast organization, his influence undeniable. History remembers remarkable feats, echoes of greatness, slaying demon kings, conquering disease, or simply wielding immense power. But these tales ignite a boy's fury, a burning resentment. He sees them as nothing but elaborate lies, a cruel mockery. His fists clench, fueled by a consuming hatred. This boy, molded to their desires, subjected to their will. His training began at the tender age of 10. He became their punching bag, a means to an end. Shaped, sculpted, forced to become stronger. Survival demanded a heavy price, a constant sacrifice. Even a beautiful girl, with her deceptive smile, brought him despair. Amidst the bitterness, the constant struggle, he endured their hollow justification. This is for your own good, they claim. Rise and become stronger. Liberation from this torment is imminent. An end to the deep wounds etched into his very being. Finally, escape from that cursed place is within reach. The Hall of Heroes. This long-suffering youth, Davy, is the one who embarks upon this thrilling odyssey. The girls harbor regret that he's still just a low-born wretch. They believe he hasn't suffered enough. They wish they'd inflicted more pain. But he makes no attempt to conceal his sense of relief. Their youthful facades belie their true nature. As ancient beings, millennia old, his slip of the tongue, calling them old hag, ignites a furious outburst, one of them pulverizing stone with a single blow. She lunges at the boy, intent on ending it. She declares he must have a death wish. Our protagonist nonchalantly dismisses her rage. Others attempt to restrain her fury, but she's fixated on teaching him a brutal lesson. She offers him a complimentary facial reconstruction, sans anesthesia. She struggled against the restraining hands, desperate to break free. But the realization dawned, her attempts were futile. The boy, oblivious or indifferent, continued to ignore her plea. Even the jesting farewell couldn't mask the finality of the moment. It was goodbye, and despite the levity, the youthful elder felt the sting of parting. She would miss him, this boy she had helped shape. Her request was simple: remember us. Don't let the memories fade, not even for a moment. His gaze swept over them, intense and searching. A flicker of something, perhaps recognition, perhaps even admiration, crossed his features. Then, he turned away. The past, it seemed, held little interest for him. He left them behind, the architects of his rigorous training. He walked on, a ghost of a smile playing on his lip. Deep down, a silent wish echoed, never to see these people again. With each step forward, the world dissolved, leaving only a radiant light, blinding, all-encompassing. Now, he lies supine. And 4-drip feeds medication into his bloodstream. He's alone, utterly alone. A gentle breeze stirs the curtains, a whisper of movement in the stillness. His hand, a mere tremor of life, barely stirred. Weakness consumes him, his eyes heavy, resistant to opening. The effort is too great. He succumbs, eyelids fluttering closed. Finally, he's back to this place. A painting adorns the wall, a silent observer. He is Davy All-Round, a prince frail and forgotten. His name, his full title, a whisper of lost grandeur. The Round Kingdom, an unremarkable land in the continent's east. An insignificant realm, birthing an equally insignificant heir. A stark contrast to his previous existence. He'd envisioned privilege, the luxuries of noble birth. A naive dream. He'd been a fool to believe it. He'd anticipated tranquility, a peaceful life. Blind to the perilous reality of an heir's existence. Conspirators lurked, their treachery hidden in poisoned cup. He grew up besieged, a constant target. His weakness, their weapon. His very lineage, a threat to his survival, risked expulsion. Flickers of memory surfaced, the unsettling sensation of being watched. A detail he'd rather bury for now. Recovery is paramount. Everything else is secondary. There will be time for reckoning later. Let fate hold its breath. His strength will return, and when it does, he'll be unstoppable. Every conspirator, every betrayer, will face his wrath, especially that arrogant, blonde-haired punk. After all, this is no ordinary victim. He was forged by heroes, trained for millennia. Alone, the boy weeps, but he's not unnoticed. A presence draws near, having witnessed his hiding place. Our protagonist is startled, his solitude shattered. Damn it all. Can't even shed tears in peace without some intrusive son of a bitch interrupting. Stay resolute, protagonist. This newcomer is no enemy, but one of his legendary mentors, one who's already aware of the brutal beating he endured. A spectacle, it seems, they even found entertaining. But if they're here to mock him, Just let him be, the protagonist sighed. His patience for explanations had worn thin. They'd showered him with false warmth, welcoming him with open arms. Then, upon discovering his perceived weakness, they cast him aside. The truth was, the sting of their rejection was palpable. But burdened by his vulnerability, he'd suffered their neglect in silence. Now, his distress was evident. He hadn't chosen this place, this situation. He was adrift, unsure of his purpose or his place. The hero attempted to console the boy. They're self-absorbed, he reassured him. None of this is your fault. He was, after all, still learning what it truly meant to be a hero. The true hero then spoke, a weight in his voice. That question, he declared, is one we all seek to answer. He added, time for you to lift your chin. Gripping the boy's shoulders, he made a promise. I'll help you find your own answer, he vowed. We're family now, he added firmly. The protagonist, however, bristled at the sentiment. Family, he scoffed. I don't even know these people. The hero before him, a survival expert, introduced himself as Hercules. From that moment forward, he vowed to forge the boy's frail body into a weapon. This news was met with a complex mix of emotions from our protagonist. While happy, he also suspected the training would be grueling, perhaps even agonizing. Hercules stressed the importance of their cooperation. Desperate, the protagonist protested, pointing out he hadn't agreed to anything. It was all a dream, a vivid tapestry woven from past memories. Now, he was awake once more. He remained confined to his bed, tethered to an four-drift. But it had been real. It had actually happened. He had somehow returned to his own world. Still lying there, he heard the distinct click of his door opening. Footsteps approached. He tried to calculate how long he'd been back, and in all that time, only one person had visited, had cared for him. The same maid, each and every time. It was to be expected, of course. After all, he had been in this state for so long. He refuses to revert to his former, pathetic self. His complete recovery becomes his singular focus. Gazing at his hand, he resolves to begin. He clenches his fist, summoning every ounce of available strength. He wills his body to mend itself. He releases his grip. He waits for a response, only to find nothing. Utterly nothing. Confusion grips him. Surely, something should have occurred. As he stares at his hands, a luminescence materializes before him. The heroine speaks. A significant amount of divine power flows through your hand. This isn't necessarily a negative aspect, but you must learn to harness it. You possess the potential to become a master, a true expert in wielding such power. Divine power is a remarkable force, emanating from a deity of purity and healing. Only those favored by this deity are granted such a gift. Daffy was the one who instructed you in its use. Her journey was one of self-reliance. She mastered everything alone. Through her dedication, our protagonist gained invaluable knowledge. A critical hurdle remains. His physical form lies dormant, unchanged for 6 long years. 6 years of struggle, yet his body remains unresponsive. His experiences reside within his soul, a wealth of untapped potential. However, his physical vessel is severely weakened, a fragile shell. Unlocking his full power will require time and dedicated recovery. Even the simplest healing magic fails to take hold, ineffective against his damaged state. His body, broken and worn, resembles a dilapidated machine, desperately needing repair. He persists, relentlessly attempting to ignite the healing magic within. Under normal circumstances, hope would have long since dwindled, but his resolve has been forged in the fires of adversity, unshakable and resolute. He goes so far as to issue an ultimatum to his own unresponsive body: cooperate, or face the consequences, a stark warning delivered from within. Following this internal struggle, a breakthrough occurs. Against all odds, his first spell manifests, a flicker of hope ignited. This hard-won opportunity will not be squandered. The healing magic finally takes hold, mending his broken form. At last, he possesses the strength to rise, to stand on his own 2 feet. A truly remarkable feat of will and perseverance. His recovery is nothing short of miraculous. Empowered, he could now wield his latent abilities within his own revitalized body. The promise of his full potential hung in the balance, awaiting his complete recovery. Full physical restoration meant the return of his dormant power. Drawn to the window, he took his first steps towards the outside world. The gentle caress of the breeze against his skin was a welcome sensation. The breathtaking panorama of the kingdom spread before him, a feast for the eye. The sun's warmth, a long-forgotten pleasure, bathed him in its golden light. Inspiration struck, a playful idea taking root in his mind. A mischievous grin spread across his face, hinting at his newfound purpose. Extending his arms, he reached towards the radiant source of his inspiration. With palms open wide, he channeled all his current strength, a gesture of reverence. He was about to salute the sun in a unique, personal tribute. His ritual was abruptly interrupted by a jarring crash of shattered ceramic. The distinct sound of a dropped plate pierced the air. The maid, startled, cried out in alarm. Her scream echoed through the room, amplifying the sudden disruption. Caught completely off guard, the boy froze mid-gesture. Doubt clouded the maid's eyes. Could this truly be the prince? Was he truly well again? He regretted being discovered in such a peculiar, vulnerable state. Mortified, he longed for the sweet oblivion of a coma. News of his awakening spread like wildfire. The doctor arrived promptly to assess the situation. Following the examination, the doctor expressed bewilderment. The prince's affliction had vanished without a trace. A subtle smile played on the boy's lip. He masked the true cause of his miraculous recovery. Intrigued by the sudden turnaround, the doctor pressed him with further inquiry. Overwhelmed, the boy felt only bone-deep exhaustion. This left the doctor pondering the situation. In another lifetime, he would have shown more deference to his elders. He even found himself nostalgic for those forgotten courtesies. Now, however, royal decorum was required, even if it was the royalty of the continent's most inconsequential kingdom. And he, at this moment, was the primary heir. A woman brimming with envy swept into the room. She remarked on his remarkably swift recovery. She approached Oscar, her gaze intent on scrutiny. He recognized the woman instantly, arrogant, despicable. Queen Lions, the reigning monarch. The very woman who poisoned his mother. From this point forward, she shall be known as the resentful one. Her children accompanied her. The second prince, henceforth known as the jealous one, and the third prince, Bullhead. The jealous one eyed Oscar with condescending superiority. They had come to confirm the rumors. Oscar declared his continued weakness. The resentful one, with audacious boldness, inquired if he had identified the archer. He admitted uncertainty. The arrows originated from afar, he noted, then questioned if anyone had been apprehended. This was a clear assassination attempt on the heir, he emphasized. Fixing a piercing gaze upon the jealous one, he asked what punishment such a crime warranted. The jealous one visibly paled, near petrified. The resentful one stated that no arrests had been made. The investigation, having reached a dead end, was officially closed. Their work complete, they departed. The doctor, having exhausted all medical options, took his leave. He remained confident, however, in Oscar's imminent and full recovery. A matter of days, he predicted, would see him back to full strength. Leaving Oscar to convalesce in peace, he retreated from the room. The resentful family finally departed. He should have stayed bedridden, she spat. Or even better, he added, died. Then, turning to her, does it bother you that the thorn in your side has sprung back to life? He taunted. Visibly shaken, the jealous one scoffed. Terror flickered in his eyes. Weakling, he hissed. A coma? Pathetic. He should learn how to take an arrow to the back, he sneered. Properly, he finished, before finally exiting. The envious family's poisonous presence finally vacated the room, even from the hallway. Their venomous whispers, laced with disdain, reached Oscar's ear. Tuning out their malice, he focused his attention on his hand. Throughout this ordeal, he'd been channeling divine magic. The power disparity was so vast, it went unnoticed. Our protagonists' original intent, annihilate his enemy's family, but a face-to-face encounter shifted his perspective. Crushing them felt like an elephant obliterating ants, pointless overkill. Perhaps years of rigorous training tempered his spirit. This revenge seemed insignificant beneath him. His course remained decided, though. Just not a priority. Not yet. His primary objective, full restoration. After a prolonged fast, his thoughts drifted to his next meal. Time for a makeover. Step 1. Goodbye, 80s rocker hair. Bad decision. Weeks had flown by since harnessing his divine power. Accelerated recovery required physical exertion. Exercise became the new ritual. Still, tedium reigned. Nothing sparked joy. Nothing. Focusing on mana circulation, however, his recuperation has been remarkably swift. Moreover, he's been expanding his intellectual horizon. He's delved into both necromancy and traditional healing art. Both disciplines, after all, demand a profound understanding of the human form. Our protagonist now commands some impressive ability. A simple snap of his fingers, and he can manipulate water, making it flow around him at will. Magic, it seems, simplifies life considerably. Mid-practice, a message arrives. Amy has arrived. The news is met with a distinct lack of enthusiasm. His meal arrives, and it's far from appealing. A bland, uninspired soup. The culinary disappointment sting more painfully than the arrows that pierced his back. Still considered a patient, he's subjected to the culinary indignities of an invalid. Powerless to intervene, Amy offers an apology. She apologizes to the prince. Such meager sustenance is hardly sufficient. He requested 5 additional serving, but upon clearing his plate, he realized 10 portions were necessary. Lou, the maid, was visibly taken aback by his request. Noticing her hesitation, he quickly reassured her, confirming his appetite. He assured her he wouldn't waste a morsel. His enhanced digestion, courtesy of healing magic, made it possible. It seems our protagonist has become a veritable machine. A digestive machine, to be precise. He could feel the tangible improvements in his physical condition. Fuel in, fuel out. Such a prodigious appetite inevitably leads to bathroom breaks. At least regularity wasn't an issue. A far preferable situation, all things considered. Seated, bespectacled, and engrossed in reading, he encountered an unforeseen predicament. The maid offered her apologies to the prince. He knew, however, that she bore no responsibility. A bill arrived, addressed to the prince. Dining wasn't free, the prince would have to settle the tab. Inquiring about the staff size, he asked the maid how many worked there. A touch flustered, she admitted to being the sole employee. This revelation caught the prince completely off guard. This presented a slight predicament. Unfazed, the prince remained unconcerned. Generations of princes had resided within these walls. Now, a single maid held the fort. Recognizing the need for oversight, he inquired about their allocated fund. The maid revealed they had received 6,000 gold coins initially. A mere 10 remained. Deeply suspicious, he questioned their expected monthly budget. 500 coins, she replied, but we've been receiving less than 100. The prince's immediate thought: embezzlement. Concerned for the maid's wages, he inquired. He needed to know her situation, and he wasn't going to pry repeatedly. Fair compensation was paramount. He had to be sure she wasn't being exploited. The young woman hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. Finally, she revealed she received a mere third of her due wages, and this, simply for serving the prince. This confirmed her inherent goodness. Yet, it also highlighted her naivete. Maids often became little more than possessions in noble households. Amy, a baron's daughter herself, had become a maid due to unforeseen circumstances. Now, she attended to menial tasks, her life drastically altered. For 6 long years, she had devoted herself to the prince's care. Despite the adversity, the hardships endured. The knowledge of her loyalty brought a sense of solace. He insisted she claim her rightfully earned wages, the missing 2/3. The maid was bewildered, the request entirely unexpected. But Oscar remained resolute, his decision unwavering. He further requested an end to the formal title, Prince. It created an unnecessary distance between them. Unaccustomed to such familiarity, the maid demurred slightly, turning on the charm full force. Oscar declared, "Formalities create unnecessary distance between us. Smooth operator, isn't he? Still, his kindness makes sense. She's been his sole supporter through this ordeal." Next, he ventured to the Royal Finance Office. Handling it personally wasn't the plan, but his problems demanded immediate attention. Despite his visit, he still hadn't encountered his father. Meanwhile, the maid grappled with revealing the missing fund. Royal discovery would spell disaster. A major crisis would undoubtedly ensue. Oscar is acutely aware of the transgression, and the risk his maid is bravely shouldering. Retreat, however, isn't in his vocabulary. Focus, he urges her. Stay by my side. She risks being left in the dark. The reality is, Oscar harbors nothing but disdain for his father. His father, passive and unmoving after his wife's death, has earned only Oscar's contempt. Meanwhile, Oscar finds himself drawn to the maid who has cared for him these past 6 years. His encounter with the finance officer proves problematic. Oscar's request quickly becomes entangled in bureaucratic red tape. The officer states flatly that dispersed funds are beyond his control. Nothing can be done. The mere sight of the bureaucrat's lazy mustache fuels Oscar's already simmering irritation. He begins scrutinizing the financial records within the office. A suspicion, already brewing, begins to solidify. It's as if they're deliberately underestimating him. Even that mustachioed clerk, with his condescending air. Oscar has had enough. Exasperated, he throws himself carelessly into a nearby armchair. A heavy sigh escapes him. His gaze sharpens, piercing. He demands to know, is the clerk playing him for a fool? It wasn't just the clerk who was taken aback. Everyone in the room was stunned by his intense reaction. He wasted no time getting down to brass tacks. He demanded to know why he hadn't received his full due. Where were his missing coins? The clerk stammered about castle maintenance cost reduction. Apparently, this was standard practice among the nobility. With another sigh, our protagonist revealed that the clerk was pushing his patience to the absolute limit. His residence, he pointed out, was utterly devoid of any maintenance whatsoever. The entire place reeked of neglect and abandonment. So, He pressed the clerk for a proper explanation. Where, precisely, were these funds being invested? Faced with a noble's wrath, even a subtle one, the clerk had little choice but to obey. Princes rarely scrutinized their finances. Caught off guard, the clerk was unprepared. His response was utterly worthless. He claimed the finance department wasn't responsible for maintenance. Even with the prince's persistent inquiry, the office's role remains strictly budgetary. Dispersing funds? Not their function. Our protagonist anticipated this predictable response. He pointed out the universal bureaucratic tactic, deflecting responsibility, regardless of the department. His business concluded, he prepared to depart. The finance clerk, however, inquired about his next destination, maintenance. The prince saw no point in pursuing that avenue. He expected a similar runaround, the same blame-shifting routine. Just another delaying tactic, prolonging the inevitable. So, he offered the clerk a suggestion. Indulge in a little self-gifting with those misappropriated funds. Back in the hallway, our protagonist dripped with sarcasm, observing the pristine condition of the building. Such meticulous upkeep. Dealing with nobility, he mused, is truly a trial, especially given the generous compensation enjoyed by these clerks. Even when receiving a mere fraction of their due wages, Amy diligently continued her work for him. With a warm glance at the maid, he requested a sword, surprising her. The girl was visibly startled by the unexpected request. He quickly reassured her, explaining that he had no intention of using the weapon on anyone. He chuckled at her evident fear. She had been genuinely frightened. Despite her apprehension, she agreed to retrieve a sword. He hadn't deceived her. He truly didn't plan to harm a person. His intended target wasn't even worthy of being called human. The protagonist had just flipped the switch to violence mode. His current position was precarious. Wanton violence would be disastrous. It would undoubtedly lead to serious repercussions. Exile would be swift and inevitable. The nobles would declare him insane. Such behavior would be utterly intolerable to them. However, our hero refuses to remain vulnerable. He won't be a victim of this cursed ability. Against the odds, he's brought down a boar. Amy's baffled. How did he manage that? Our protagonist offers a simple explanation. He stumbled upon it, conveniently dead, near the castle. A blatant lie. He hunted and killed it, but maintaining the facade of weakness is key. He requests a plate and sealant from the maid, feigning helplessness, if they have any, that is. But the maid has other concerns that immediately pique the prince's interest. She declares, royal hands must never be sullied by animal blood, and butchering? Unthinkable. Far too dangerous. The risk of a knife wound is simply unacceptable. It's fine, our protagonist assures her, casually, adding, for extra measure, no one's watching. Her anxiety intensified. Speaking with the king is impossible for now. Political affairs have him tied up. And the other departments? Equally inaccessible. The queen is relentlessly making his life a living hell. But our hero is a master of survival. He was, after all, personally trained by Hercules. That boar? Tonight's dinner. Its threat was insignificant to him. Within the resentful queen's chamber, she continues to nurture her bitter resentment. She demands to know the prince's every move. She's observed a distinct change in the protagonist since his awakening. His behavior is drastically different. According to physicians, the prince can barely manage a step. Full recovery could take a year. The servants claim this diagnosis is irrefutable. Fixing the servant with a steely gaze, the bitter queen voiced her dissent. This servant is a member of the Black Moon Assassin Guild, and despite employing her services, the bitter queen remains deeply distrustful. She dismisses the servant's colleagues as utterly incompetent. As for the prince, the very son forsaken by the king, time has passed, but her convictions remain unshaken. Years haven't altered her perspective one bit. She firmly believes the heir's destiny rests solely in her control, or so she perceives it should be. But beneath the surface, the embittered queen's anxieties fester. The assassin has a pointed message to deliver, a warning against disparaging her associates, regardless of their standing, irrespective of social class. Taken aback, the queen recoils. Feigning concern, she claims merely to be voicing apprehension. She maintains the illusion of control over the prince's ambition. But if her meticulously crafted plans unravel, there will be consequences, a price to be paid. The remaining tea spills onto the floor, mirroring her simmering rage. With a dismissive gesture, the servant is sent away. The queen's thoughts darken, the allure of eliminating the prince intensifies. The servant patiently awaits the inevitable command. Elsewhere, at the Harris residence, a tranquil dinner unfolds between master and servant. The path of mana is a delicate tapestry, intricately woven. He meticulously guides the flow. At least, that's the method ingrained in it. The brain's intricate veins pose the ultimate challenge. Accidental blindness is a real risk. Heeding that lesson is crucial. His tutor, a priestess with a penchant for spirit. Her words held the power to part the sea. She relished the training process. A mage was also present. So diminutive, only her staff was visible. She oversaw everything. A goddess, guardian of the protagonist's well-being, orchestrated the training. They weren't mere observers. Assistance, in some form, was guaranteed. These images flooded his consciousness. Memories of his initial training surfaced. The experiment he vowed never to replicate. Outside, in the garden, a maid inquired about his purpose there. The weather was invitingly pleasant. The very forest seemed to bask in a newfound grace, reflecting the prevailing serenity. Oscar, granting the maid a reprieve from her duties, dismissed her. He instructed her to alert him should anyone inquire about his presence, ensuring she was kept informed of any visitor. He cautioned her against overexertion, encouraging a measured approach to her task. Fortunately, the maid is steadily acclimating to the prince's unique rhythm, while still declining to dine with him. She exhibits a newfound comfort in his presence. Her presence facilitates his tranquil convalescence, allowing him to savor the peace. Amidst the garden's embrace, Oscar prepared to embark upon a crucial undertaking. Focusing his magical energies, a shimmering field of mana enveloped him. Within this ethereal field, small golden orbs of energy materialized. These luminous spheres began to gracefully orbit his form. He remained utterly absorbed, his concentration absolute. He drew upon the very essence of nature, absorbing its ambient mana. This technique, known as mana breathing, was a gift from the god of mages himself. Bestowed by Odin, it allowed him to draw power, yet the capacity for mana is finite. Hence, this rigorous training demands daily dedication. The true marvel of this method lies in its unprecedented acceleration of progress, condensing months into mere days. If this technique were to spread throughout the kingdom, it would ignite a revolution. It would be utterly transformative, a complete upheaval. But our protagonist harbors no desire to share this powerful secret, especially considering its demanding nature and the difficulty in mastering it. He remains grounded, seated on the grass, basking in the gentle caress of the breeze. Yet, he's acutely aware of a hidden presence, an intruder observing him. His curiosity about the Watcher's identity intensifies. However, he's certain of one thing. The Queen's hand is at play in this. To preempt any complications, he feigns ignorance. He remains blissfully unaware. Maintaining the facade of a foolish, incompetent prince is still his best strategy. His mana distortion field allows him the peace to train, undetected and underestimated. This deceptive tranquility fuels his progress, increasing his mana capacity. His mana reserves are growing, his power accumulating. But a looming deadline approaches, a critical moment he can no longer avoid. The inevitable is drawing near. The Dan Mana Circle. A priest's magic is forbidden to mages, and sacred power remains beyond a mage's grasp. Necromancy, a darker art, eludes both entirely. But as you've likely gathered, our protagonist defies these limitations, wielding all three. This extraordinary ability is a product of two eccentric mentors and some morally questionable researchers. The mere memory of the process churns his stomach. Typical mages inscribe a mana circle upon their hearts to channel their magical energy. This grants control, but at a cost, a heavy cost. It seals them off from the realms of sacred power and the forbidden arts of necromancy. To tamper with this delicate balance is to invite disaster. Oscar's power comes at a steep price, the potential destruction of his own heart. That's why he relies on a personalized safeguard, the artery circle. This unique technique is his lifeline. By attuning to his body's arterial network, he constructs a circle that regulates the potent flow of mana. Baski dedicates his entire being to this intricate process. The results are nothing short of extraordinary. However, this method borders on bodily modification, a perilous undertaking, demanding utmost precision. One wrong move could be fatal. This is precisely why Oscar hesitated to repeat this dangerous ritual. His previous attempt was a near-death experience. He barely survived, escaping by the thinnest of margins. Even then, he relied heavily on his teacher's guidance. Now, facing the challenge alone, doubt gnaws at his confidence. Suddenly, a touch, hands upon his own. Translucent figures materialize before him, familiar, yet ethereal. His teachers, spectral remnants of their former self. Anything was preferable to another millennium trapped in that temple. That thought alone fueled his resolve. Oscar initiated his plan. He began constructing his own, unique magic circle. As daylight faded, the maid ventured out to search for the prince. Dinner was long overdue. The protagonist was significantly late, though occasional tardiness happened. He never missed a meal. The maid found herself in a predicament. He'd explicitly asked for no interruption. But what if he required assistance? To approach or not to approach? She was torn, as worry gnawed at her. The protagonist's voice rang out, reminding her he'd forbidden the title prince. The unexpected sound startled her. Surprise washed over her. Emerging from the garden, Oscar announced his return. He added that waiting was unnecessary, just as he'd instructed. However, this woman's unwavering spirit proves a powerful draw for our protagonist, a force he finds hard to resist, meaning, his efforts will have to intensify, his resolve deepen. Impulsively, without a word, he pulls her into an embrace. But even a hug seems beyond him. The execution is, shall we say, less than perfect. One arm hangs awkwardly, a testament to his current state. Despite this, the maid's face flushes crimson, a vibrant hue suggesting near combustion. Only then does the prince offer an apology, a gesture of contrition. He confesses, admitting he's reached the absolute end of his rope. And with that, he collapses, utterly spent, onto the ground. The clumsy hug now makes perfect, if slightly concerning, sense. Following Arjun's exertion in the garden, our protagonist is clearly in dire need of recuperation. He awakens in his bed, the world slowly coming back into focus. The realization dawns, his worries had been, perhaps, excess. Mid-thought, he registers something amiss, a subtle shift in the familiar. A touch, a connection, against his hand. The hand belongs to Amy. She's asleep beside him, a silent, unexpected presence. Sitting up, the events of the previous day resurface, his sudden collapse, a burden that undoubtedly weighed heavily on her mind. His once daunting task, now flawlessly executed. A trinity of power now surged through him. Beyond the enigmatic circle lay an extraordinary phenomenon. A gentle breeze, drifting through the window, stirred the maid from her slumber. She found the prince gazing outwards, lost in thought. This special effect was absolute, boundless freedom. With a mere flick of his finger, he could unleash potent spell. Registering the maid's awakening, he offered a swift good morning. 5 months had elapsed since that pivotal day. Anne's spirits had noticeably brightened. She spoke of discovering herbs within the garden. The protagonist remained unfazed. He was content with their current fare. The maid, however, overflowed with gratitude. Their lives had taken a turn for the better precisely 3 months prior. An anonymous benefactor began leaving provisions at their doorstep. His initial suspicion fell upon the queen, suspecting a hidden motive. He quickly discarded that notion. Someone else was clearly aiding the prince, but their identity remained a mystery to our protagonist. However, his magical abilities allowed him to sense a persistent presence. Tracing the source of that presence with mana would be a trivial task. Mid-contemplation, another sensation caught his attention. Individuals were approaching his residence. Aware of their approach, the prince sprang into action. Amy, still reveling in their newfound food security, received instructions from the prince to prepare. Confusion clouded the girl's face at the vague command. Until our protagonist clarified, guests were imminent. He burned with curiosity about their identity. A small contingent arrived. Informants dispatched by the queen, he surmised. Their mission, to evaluate the prince's health. He observed the men, his expression serene. He knew they were oblivious to the reality of his situation. He sought the priest's perspective on his recovery. He inquired about the prospects of a swift recuperation. The priest declared the prince's condition precarious. Using sacred power, he claimed, would be far too dangerous. The prince should be content with his current level of recovery. But the prince recognized the priest's words as utter fabrication. A healing spell hadn't even been attempted. He was forsaking his divine oath, simply to appease the queen. The sheer audacity of it was infuriating. Oscar thought the priest's virtuous act was a blatant charade. The refusal wasn't due to inability, but a deliberate choice. He posed pointed, technical questions, challenging the priest's claim. All the while, believing his recovery was nearing completion. The priest's response was condescending. "You speak of matters beyond your grasp, boy," he scoffed. "Sacred power is the exclusive domain of the priesthood. And yet, you speak as if you possess true understanding. Temper your arrogance." With a provocative smirk, the priest prepared a mocking retort. He then dared to compare Oscar to one of the queen's sons. Amy rebuked the priest sharply. He invoked the prince's presence, demanding respect and careful speech. The priest bristled at being corrected by a mere servant. He attempted to strike her, disguising it as discipline. The prince observed everything, his displeasure evident. The priest boasted of his noble deed, his supposed service to the prince. He claimed to have preempted a potential issue for the prince. He dismissed the servant as insignificant. He cupped her face, his thoughts far from pure. He remarked on her beautiful smile, a chilling juxtaposition. Our protagonist fought to restrain himself. He barely held back from immediate, violent retribution. He yearned to end the priest's life on the spot. Having made the journey, the priest demanded an escort. He expected the servant to guide him to the exit. He declared his intention to return in a fortnight. Oscar instructed Amy to escort the priest. She accepted the order with clear reluctance. The priest harbored a sinister intent. The prince feigned ignorance of the priest's malice. They finally arrived at the gate. The priest impressed his instructions upon the maid. She was to come alone, under cover of night. He held the prince's very life in his hands, he claimed. The priest's actions betrayed a chilling indifference, noble blood or not. The prince remained a frail and sickly air. A peculiar chill crept through the protagonist's being. A growing coldness enveloped him. The sensation defied explanation. Perhaps it was simply overwhelming rage, but his time within the hero's temple had taught him a different interpretation. He'd learned, uncontrolled emotion reduces one to less than an animal. Failure to master one's feelings was a mark of inferiority. Sword in hand, his thoughts sharpened, focused. His approach stirred unease among the priests. They remained unaware of his royal lineage. Mastery of rage becomes a compass, guiding one surely towards their ambition. If idleness were truly the path to progress, fueled by pure rage, action became inevitable. The two priests lay prostrate, their fate uncertain. Presumably lifeless, they offered no resistance as their leader continued his menacing tirade against the maid. He made it chillingly clear that the prince's life hung precariously in the balance. The prince's existence, he declared, was utterly inconsequential. His death, he claimed, would be a source of immense amusement for the queen. He asserted that the prince was utterly isolated, without a single ally in the kingdom. Moreover, he boasted of his immunity, claiming no one held the authority to reprimand him. He was, after all, the queen's instrument, her enforcer. The protagonist, patiently awaiting the conclusion of this monologue, offered a sardonic compliment, a compelling performance, because he, too, required justification. With that, his sword flashed, finding its mark. The priest crumpled, utterly vulnerable at the prince's feet. Our protagonist turned to his servant, posing a pointed question. "What is the prescribed punishment?" he inquired, "for blaspheming against the royal family?" The priest, utterly blindsided, hadn't anticipated this turn of events. He believed the prince remained confined to his sickbed. Our protagonist was fully aware of this misconception. He, too, was intrigued by the prince's sudden mobility. This explained the priest's underestimation, his fatal miscalculation. Such pedestrian power was beneath them. He addressed his servant again, reiterating his point. He'd explicitly forbidden repetition. The consequences for such disobedience were crystal clear. The method of execution was predetermined, a fate now shared by the priest. His severed head hung limply. Crimson stained the floor. The priest's agony was palpable. He gasped, "The queen won't allow this." A ghost of a smile touched the protagonist's lip. "Your warning is appreciated," he murmured. "But know this. Those who defy the prince share a similar destiny." With that, the fool's head was fully detached. Within the queen's hall, outrage echoed. "The prince is mad. He's executed a crucial figure. A disciple of the Holy Land. That man attempted my life," the prince countered. "I merely upheld the law." Consumed by rage, the queen seethed. She lashed out, attempting to strike Oscar. He, however, found the entire situation rather comical. During his coma, the kingdom's legal system had become remarkably lax. So lax, in fact, that no proper investigation into his incident occurred. The prince pointed out that even with all this, the king remained passive, his only action a minor punishment, and that punishment was for someone who had merely insulted the royal. It was absurd, he argued, for the true victim to face consequences. He challenged the queen, demanding to know when. The royal family had become subservient to lesser disciples. The queen bristled at the provocation. The prince's words had effectively belittled her followers. She retorted, claiming a lack of evidence. He shouldn't pass judgment, she snarled, with his empty head. He was as foolish, she declared, as his own mother. Her insult ignited Oscar's fury. Pressing further, she decried both him and his mother as inferior. A hint of menace crept into Oscar's demeanor. He had some advice for the queen. Cursing someone's parents is never a good idea, especially not right in front of them. The tension was palpable, thick enough to knock the queen back a step. Blades flashed, weapons materialized, the air crackled with danger. The queen's maids, highly trained and fiercely loyal, stood ready to defend their embittered ruler. One was already positioned directly behind the prince, a silent sentinel. The presence felt strangely familiar. Our protagonist mused that things might have been more entertaining had the queen put up more of a fight. He spoke of hammering nails into a coffin, a chilling metaphor. Whether the queen's or anyone else's, he implied. Threatening a royal life is a grave offense. No different, he stated, from any other high crime. The queen, stung by his words, fell into deep contemplation. A sudden realization dawned upon her. He knew who was behind the attempt on his life. Meeting her gaze, he offered a subtle, knowing smile. He'd known all along. He wasn't one to hold his cards close to his chest for very long. From the moment she slapped a patient, the queen's disregard for others was palpable. He demanded decorum within his palace walls, emphasizing the building's dilapidated state, clearly visible to her. After all, She was responsible for the dismissal of the entire staff. Immediate and necessary maintenance was her responsibility, he declared. Otherwise, whispers would inevitably turn into a roar of gossip. He urged her to consider the consequences of her actions carefully. Continued misbehavior would not be tolerated, he warned. Back in her chambers, the queen unleashed her fury, smashing objects. Her maid waited patiently for the storm of rage to subside. Condescension from a half-blood was a bitter pill for the queen to swallow. It ignited a rage within her that burned hotter than normal. And so, she began to plot against our protagonist. He seemed so eager to hasten his demise, she thought. She would happily oblige. He was utterly unaware of the forces he was provoking. Within the castle walls, hushed conversations buzzed. The rumors were indeed true. Whispers circulated about the prince, awakened from his coma. It appears his mind has been influenced. Amy, happening to pass by, inadvertently overheard the conversation. Following the incidents with the priest and the queen, everything proceeded according to plan. Rumors about the prince began to circulate. Whispers claimed he'd lost his sanity. Given the queen's significant support within the palace, his reputation was swiftly deteriorating. Radiating joy, Amy summoned the prince to inspect a new arrival. More supplies had been delivered. He protested, claiming he didn't require the abundance of medicinal herb, but Amy expressed profound gratitude for the donation. Surely, she thought, someone must recognize the prince's true, benevolent intention. He questioned his maid. Did she truly perceive him as such a virtuous person? Brimming with enthusiasm, she affirmed her belief in his exceptional nature. He found her unwavering optimism perplexing, especially considering the recent incident she had witnessed. A truly remarkable individual, she was. Her rarity became strikingly apparent during their time together. A man, with utmost courtesy, requested their attention. This elder, Besphus by name, presented the apprehended culprits before the prince, fulfilling the queen's command. These were the individuals responsible for the misappropriation of the prince's finances. Among their ranks, a few faces sparked recognition. The prince inquired about the customary punishment for such transgression. The elder's response, that the penalty rested with the prince's discretion. However, decapitation was the generally accepted consequence. Instantly, the protagonist's former detractor descended into desperate pleas for mercy. He revealed a rumor circulating within the palace wall. Whispers suggested that the prince had developed a pronounced thirst for blood, or so the circulating gossip claimed. Perhaps, he mused, he should lean into these circulating rumors. His thinly veiled threat amplified their desperate plea. Terror gripped them completely. Without uttering a single word, he instructed the elder to handle the matter. Arrest warrants were issued. However, our protagonist wasn't satisfied with how events unfolded, particularly since it occurred under the queen's authority. He chose to play along, intrigued by the turn of events. The situation had taken a decidedly more captivating twist. A sentence was passed, beheading in 9 days. Returning to his chambers, he ordered Amy's promotion. A bonus would accompany her advancement. Another question lingered in his mind. He inquired about the continued denial of an audience with his father. The elder offered an apology. Our protagonist pressed further, seeking to ascertain the source of the decree, king or queen. The elder insisted he was merely a messenger, relaying information. He urged the prince to exercise patience. The kingdom, he explained, was navigating a precarious political landscape. The prince grasped the underlying implication. He acknowledged the elder's words, promising to bear them in mind. The elder made to depart, believing his task complete. But the prince detained him, a further thought demanding utterance. He devoured every morsel delivered to his doorstep. Yet, the continued arrival of medicinal herbs from the old man was now unnecessary. Circumstances had shifted, eliminating the need for the food deliveries as well. A smile spread across the old man's face. He feigned ignorance of the prince's meaning, suggesting instead that fortune had smiled upon it. He alluded to imminent visitors for the prince, urging his departure. Our protagonist, taken aback, was astonished by the old man's intimate knowledge of palace affairs. He pondered the old man's true nature, questioning his apparent obliviousness, despite the overwhelming evidence. This man was the highest-ranking servant of the king. The protagonist recalled frequent encounters with him in his youth. He hadn't anticipated the old man's allegiance. The old man's prediction of visitors resurfaced in his mind. Just then, Amy arrived with a message for the prince. And so, the prophecy was fulfilled. She revealed the presence of the second and fourth princes. Like predators spotting their prey, the two lunged towards the protagonist. They practically threw themselves upon it. The smaller one, Winley, the second princess, had knocked our protagonist over. Overcome with worry, she anxiously inquired about his well-being. She was concerned if they had also caused him further harm. He was unaware of her identity. He wouldn't use mana to pry into his maid's affairs. The other individual admonished the girl for her carelessness. This boy, Barris, had eagerly anticipated meeting the prince. He'd been looking forward to this encounter. Their father, the king, and the protagonist's father, is currently captivated, utterly enamored by love. He has 3 wives, the queen and 2 concubines, Alice and Anisha. Alice aligns with the queen's agenda, while Anisha remains neutral. She keeps her distance from the other wives. Barris and Winley are Anisha's children, making them the protagonist's half-sibling. As the boy offered his apologies, the girl's attention was caught by something, reacting impulsively. She launched a kick aimed at her brother's head. He deftly evaded the blow. "Why would you do that?" he questioned. Her brother's sudden formality was grating on her nerve. His strangely stiff demeanor, especially after he'd been so insistent on meeting the prince. A heated argument erupted, a clear demonstration of their sibling bond. Their bickering escalated, confirming their familial tie. Their true sibling nature was on full display. Oscar watched the entire exchange unfold. He overheard their claims of apprehending a band of thieves. Could it be true? Scrutinizing them, they hardly projected a regal air. Their quarrel finally subsided, and their attention shifted to Oscar. These were the same siblings who always hung on his every word. Irritation flickered across the girl's face. The prince's laughter at their heated exchange did not amuse her. 6 years of silence stretched between them, a chasm of unspoken word. A coma had stolen the prince, silencing him for years. In the wake of his collapse, they were sent away, hidden in isolation. Mere children of 8, vulnerable and unprepared. They were ill-equipped to navigate such turbulent times. Adding to the hardship, Anisha had made the agonizing decision to send her firstborn daughter away. The bitter queen's machinations forced her hand, a sacrifice for survival. Protecting her children became paramount, a mother's desperate duty. Our protagonist remains oblivious, shielded from the weight of such choices. He doesn't grasp the agonizing decisions made, the sacrifices endured. Such burdens are often invisible, their complexities misunderstood. He inquired after his siblings, their interaction with their father. They confirmed a prior meeting, a brief reunion before seeking the prince. Concern laced his voice as he questioned the king's well-being. A little tired, his brother replied, a hint of worry in his tone. The girl observed his ignorance, the missed encounter with their father. Our protagonist acknowledged the potential difficulty, the emotional hurdle. Reunion, though challenging, was within reach, a promise on the horizon. En route to the prince's residence, they stumbled upon a disturbing sight. The residence was in a truly deplorable state. Word was, funds had been embezzled. However, the culprits were already apprehended. This news infuriated his brother. He was livid. He couldn't fathom such a transgression against his own sibling. Stealing from someone ill was utterly despicable. They intended to inform the king, but our protagonist urged them against such drastic measures. His brother appeared ready to retaliate, yet he abruptly halted. The prince's words had clearly given him pause. The protagonist remained remarkably composed. He declared he would handle the situation personally. Reuniting with his siblings lifted his spirit. He hadn't realized the extent of their support. Perhaps, though, it was wishful thinking. He continued his light-hearted conversation with his sibling. It appears the young lady possesses a certain magical aptitude. Their conversation drifted back to commonplace topic. His brother, too, displays a remarkable talent for swordplay. Despite their bickering, both siblings are exceptionally gifted. These words resonated deeply. He considered their implication. He learned of an upcoming swordsmanship tournament. This news triggered alarm in his sibling. They hadn't intended for the prince to discover this information, not like this. The argument flared anew. The young man regained his composure. He offered a small envelope to the prince. This tournament, he explained, occurs every 5 years. This year, it's hosted in the Kingdom of Palestine. Our protagonist understands the tournament's true purpose. It fosters continental harmony. He scanned the letter, noting the details within. Various categories were listed. Competitors ranged from mercenaries to royalty. His brother urged the prince to seize the opportunity. After all, he'd never ventured beyond the kingdom's border. He appealed to their father for this very reason. The young woman expressed her hope for a collective journey. The Kingdom of Palestine, renowned as the City of Water, promises breathtaking beauty. Oscar contemplated his sibling's proposition. His reflection was cut short by the resumption of their quarrel. Oscar declared the matter settled. He couldn't refuse his twin brother's plea. He erupted in enthusiastic celebration. Amidst the revelry, the prince pleaded for the preservation of his home. Their shared joy was a heartwarming sight. Barassi had been correct on one account. Oscar had never ventured beyond the palace wall. Experiencing this world wouldn't be a regrettable endeavor. A singular opportunity for exploration presented itself, perhaps even an occasion for some amusement. He eagerly anticipated the start of their journey. News of the swordsmanship competition spread. Barras, nearing 14, approached adulthood. They assumed the twins were currently conferring with the prince. The elder reassured them, dispelling their worry. The prince, he affirmed, was blossoming into an exceptional individual. Poised and remarkably perceptive, he had matured considerably. The elder marveled at the extent of the prince's transformation. For the enigmatic man, the elder's endorsement was absolute. The seemingly lovesick king found the situation poignant. A melancholic air hung over him as he observed. A portrait of the late queen rested upon a nearby surface. The protagonist gazed at his mother's image, a surge of affection warming his heart. Until now, the palace's disrepair had escaped his notice. Thanks to the elder's intervention, the building had been swiftly restored to its former glory. Amy, too, expressed admiration for the renovation. She could scarcely believe the transformation had finally occurred. The protagonist sensed a peculiar intensity in her interest. Perhaps, he mused, he had exerted undue pressure upon her. But Amy's happiness at the positive turn of events was evident. They inquired if the prince was prepared. The time for their departure was fast approaching. The protagonist entrusted a bottle to Amy's care. Their departure was imminent. Destination, Palestine, the Kingdom of Water. The aquatic city awaited. The competition commanded global attention, a spectacle of immense influence. Its impact resonated worldwide. With his brother competing, the prince secured permission to attend. His supposed illness was no obstacle. His presence was a given. Barras's success threatened the jealous prince's standing. His reputation hung in the balance. The queen sanctioned the concubine's son's participation. Her confidence in his failure was palpable. Sabotage seemed to be her intent. The king, a celebrated dignitary, graced the event with his presence. It was the protagonist's first glimpse of the king since awakening, a reunion born from his awakening. For 6 months, the king had shunned his own son. The king commanded them to meet his gaze. He sought to gauge his son's confidence. The young man affirmed his resolve and vowed to serve as a worthy representative of his king. The king, in turn, expressed his hopes for a safe return. A brief exchange followed between the two. The king's attention was then drawn to a lingering gaze fixed upon the first heir. The heir met the stare with unwavering resolve. His expression remained impassive, betraying no emotion. Turning away from the boy, the king remarked on his satisfaction at seeing him in good health. The protagonist's sister observed the subtle interaction. She recognized the prince's deliberate restraint, his emotions carefully concealed. His father's current state, however, came as no surprise. The weight of Barras's participation in the competition was a topic of much discussion. Its significance resonated throughout the kingdom. It was a cause for celebration. Our protagonist noted a marked change in the king. The aura of heroism and confidence that once defined him had faded. He now resembled a weary, aged lion. The ceremony had left him visibly burdened by his responsibility. Settled within the carriage, Burris anticipated a tedious journey ahead. Elite guards ensured their safety, a reassuring presence amidst the journey. They inquired about Oscar's comfort, attentive to his every need. Oscar's sole worry? The potential monotony of the travel. Everyone fussed over his well-being, a constant source of concern. A young woman remarked that Oscar's generous wine gift guaranteed a smoother, more enjoyable trip. Eris, ever cautious, warned her about overindulging. But the exquisite taste was a novel experience for her. Intrigued, she questioned Oscar about the wine's origin. Oscar admitted his ignorance, revealing it was a relic from his mother. His siblings expressed apprehension about consuming such a treasure. Oscar dismissed their concerns, emphasizing its purpose, enjoyment. He insisted on savoring it on such a special occasion. They noticed a significant shift in the prince's demeanor. He had always fiercely guarded his mother's legacy. Oscar was touched by their keen memory. The celebratory spirit resumed, their earlier concerns forgotten. The carriage pressed onward, destination bound. Under the cloak of night, they made camp, their journey to resume at daybreak. Their outdoor adventure would extend another day. Barries, concerned about the prince's first camping experience, hovered nearby. The prince, assuring everyone he was comfortable, inquired about Winnie's whereabouts. He was informed she had embarked on a stroll. Apparently, she'd indulged in a generous portion of wine. Oscar offered apologies for the overabundance of wine. A recollection surfaced. Oscar had once expressed a desire for just such a camping trip. He'd yearned for this experience. Everyone strived to minimize the duration of their stop. They aimed to avoid overexerting the prince. The entire journey proceeded with an abundance of caution. The prince was treated with the utmost care, almost as if he were convalescent. Oscar reflected on the changing nature of things, juxtaposed with enduring constants. Some things shifted with time, while others remained eternally familiar. A wave of gratitude washed over him for the presence of his sibling. He bid the young prince good night as he retreated to his cabin. Amy inquired if Oscar intended to retire as well, but Oscar was captivated by the celestial display above. The moon seemed to radiate an unusual brilliance. Grasping a branch, he began a series of practiced movements. He declared it the ideal moment for his comeback, the perfect time to pose the question. Amy's mind flashed back to the gesture, a finger pointing skyward. Cyrus, he'd explained, is the crimson moon. Craze, the cerulean. The guard's words echoed in her memory. As craze wanes, Cyrus waxes. It was a universally understood truth in that land, a tale whispered even in children's bedtime story. He conceded such discussions were perhaps ill-suited, especially in the presence of a lady. A second guard materialized, inquiring about his solitary conversation. He, however, remained oblivious to any dialogue part. From a distance, the prince observed the scene unfold. The unseen speaker had been none other than he, leaving the bewildered guard convinced he'd communed with a spirit. 5 guards in all had been employed by his sibling. 4 of them, seasoned warriors of exceptional skill. Ample protection, provided nothing untoward occurred, say an ambush by a band of assassins. Our protagonist was aware of the shadows, roughly 20 in number. Their attack, he surmised, would coincide with slumber's embrace, and they were masters of the vanishing act. A golden opportunity presented itself to the queen, the chance to obliterate them all. An opportunity she wouldn't dream of letting slip through her fingers. This didn't sit well with our protagonist. It risked exposing his true nature, a secret he guarded fiercely. But upon deeper reflection, it became inconsequential. Those who witnessed his power wouldn't survive to share their revelation. If you have no teeth, bite with your gum. A lesson instilled by his sword master. Anything in his grasp becomes a potential instrument of destruction. In the brutal dance of survival, there are no rules. Weapons are merely extensions of the body. Their effectiveness lies solely in the wielder's skill. Even clothing can transform into deadly blade. The assassins proved weaker than anticipated. Disappointingly so. They were pale imitations compared to her mace, the one who forged him into the weapon he is. Ultimately, it was a tedious diversion. He would ask a simple question, merely to confirm his suspicion, for he knew it was the bitter queen who had sent them to their death. Despite the prince's declaration, his adversaries remained remarkably composed. If they chose silence, their questions would go unanswered. The prince wouldn't coerce them, he respected their right to remain silent. Compulsion wouldn't alter the events that had already transpired. However, the burning question remained, what did the queen hope to achieve with this audacious attack? Such an act would undoubtedly destabilize the kingdom. Even the queen would face repercussions from such a reckless gamble. A hidden motive, a concealed confidence, seemed to fuel her action. What drove her to initiate such a brazen assault? Our protagonist, unyielding, began to systematically dismantle his remaining foe. He observed that some of the attackers lingered, seemingly unfazed. They appeared oblivious to the gravity of their precarious situation. He commanded a message be delivered to the queen. Cease her provocations or face utter devastation. Everything she held dear would be destroyed. The assassins hesitated, momentarily frozen, facing imminent execution. They broke ranks and fled, leaving the prince in solitude. A smile played on the boy's lips. Are they retreating? He inquired. Simply because he issued the command. He dismissed it as nothing but a pathetic, amateur provocation. With a clandestine technique, he silenced the remaining survivors, and then proceeded to mock their feeble intellect. They had fallen for such a transparent trap. The hallmark of a true assassin, he declared, is patience. If no one bears witness, he continued, it's a clean assassination. Let that be a lesson. As he spoke, 2 more assassins launched a desperate attack. A foolish endeavor. Ambushing the protagonist from behind was futile. However, one of them made a genuine attempt to flee, while the others fought to buy precious seconds. The protagonist dispatched them all with contemptuous ease. He scoffed. Not even worth the branch I used to end them. He extended a finger, pointing deep into the forest's shadow. His gaze locked onto a distant object. He had anticipated this ambush, prepared for it. Escape was impossible. He had his target firmly in his sight. A simple snap of his fingers was all it would take. The assassin was consumed by a devastating soul explosion. A brutal end, certainly. but entirely appropriate under the circumstances. Mercy is a luxury he couldn't afford against those who threatened his life. A lesson ingrained within the hallowed halls of the Temple of Heroes. A fitting conclusion for every single one of them. An assassination executed flawlessly. The perpetrator would forever remain shrouded in anonymity. The ultimate guarantee of its perfection. The embittered queen burned with anticipation, desperate for news of the assassin's success. But the servant brought only tidings of devastating failure. The candles representing her pupils' lives had been snuffed out, extinguished completely. The chilling realization struck the queen: her assassins had been massacred. And the royal bastards, she demanded, her voice laced with venom. The news was a fresh blow. They had reached their destination unharmed. Enraged by the assassin's incompetence, the furious queen lashed out, striking the woman across the face. "Useless fools," she spat. "Incapable of eliminating a handful of mere children. 20 assassins, defeated in a matter of nights? How is this possible?" The investigation continues, every detail scrutinized. Evidence suggests the prince has an accomplice, a hidden hand aiding his escape. The queen, however, remains in the dark, unaware of who would dare assist these bastards. This ignorance fuels her fury, stoking the fires of her wrath. The assassin is tasked with uncovering the identity of this mysterious benefactor. The queen's vengeance will be swift and merciless, directed at whoever dares defy her. The message to the assassin is clear, delivered with chilling finality. Failure is not an option. The queen does not tolerate incompetence. Should the assassin fail to deliver, the consequences will be dire. Her contract will be terminated, her services no longer required, and the full force of the crown, its unyielding power, will be unleashed upon the Black Moon. Their destruction will be absolute and final. The servant vows to heed the queen's warning. Within the confines of the carriage, the Kingdom of Palestine emerges on the horizon, a promise of arrival. The twins' bickering resumes, their familiar squabble filling the air. Our protagonist, however, feels a wave of relief wash over him. Their destination is finally within reach. Palestine, a compact kingdom, comparable in size to the modern-day Singapore. Yet, its streets whisper tales of history, echoing with the past. It stands as a jewel of the continent, a place of unparalleled beauty. Our protagonist drinks in the beauty surrounding him. His brother observes his evident delight in their new surroundings. A massive structure looms before them, Colosseum-like in its grandeur. This is the arena for the upcoming swordsmanship competition, typically a stage for gladiatorial combat and monster hunt. Now, it will host a different kind of spectacle. 8 nations will clash in this contest of skill, but our protagonist reflects. It's merely a thinly veiled display of military might, a flexing of national muscle for all to see. Not everyone shares the enthusiasm, with all participants under 20. Talent isn't guaranteed. Nearby, a princess indicates the Round Kingdom's representative. The idiot, as she calls him, currently by her side. Their bickering amuses our protagonist, but he knows his brother's skills are merely intermediate, though mastery is within reach. Remarkable, isn't it? Such accomplishment at such a young age. The fallen kingdom's emissary is none other than the renowned sword princess herself. Our protagonist, however, is completely unaware of her identity. Yet, his sister claims she's a household name throughout the kingdom. It seems a new legend has risen during his unconsciousness. Elena of Alan, sole princess to her king, boasts 9 brothers, and she's the crown jewel, the clear favorite. But according to his brother, her renown stems from more than just royal lineage. Her true fame lies in wielding the divine sword, a blade blessed by the gods themselves, a legendary masterpiece, forged over 1,000 days and nights. Its name, Caladrius. A name our protagonist hasn't heard in quite some time, for the god of swords, Hares, was his very first mentor at the Temple of Heroes. Lazy he may have been, but his skill was undeniable, and the protagonist often heard tales of his master's legendary blade, the very weapon that vanquished the demon king himself. Leaving his mark is inevitable, a natural consequence of his presence. Despite this, a sense of unease lingers within our protagonist. A girl passes by, then glances back at him, a flicker of curiosity in her eye. Inquiries are made, questions about what transpired. Masking her true feelings, she downplays the event. Nothing of importance, she claims, concealing the significance. The divine sword, an unblemished blade, remains eternally pristine. It channels magic, a conduit for mystical energy. A spirit resides within, a source of its power. Nurtured by creators and wielders, its essence grows stronger. Its title, Divine Sword, is no mere appellation. After centuries, it has chosen Elena, selecting her as its bearer. Yet another facet of this princess contributes to her renown, an equally vital aspect, impossible to overlook. She is among the continent's most exquisite beauty. This detail pleases our protagonist. For him, it's the paramount fact. In his eyes, this truth holds the utmost importance. Later, he inquires about alternative attire, dissatisfied with Amy's selection. He voices his displeasure with her chosen outfit. However, the girl remains utterly captivated, completely smitten. Personal preferences aside, the attire was non-negotiable. As a kingdom representative, impeccable presentation was mandatory. This event transcended the competition itself. The royal family had ulterior motives at play. At last, the protagonist reunited with his sibling. The twins were captivated by his ensemble. The boy cautioned against over-complimenting their sister, lest she let it go to her head. Proof of which, she nearly stomped on his foot, while the boy recovered. The protagonist departed with his sister. Their destination, a grand gala. Once more, the enigmatic girl found her attention diverted, a slight complaint about the noise. Yet her gaze lingered on the protagonist. The event, a prime networking opportunity for young noble. The mysterious woman deemed the venue acceptable. The Colosseum, though barbaric, possessed a certain beauty. A lavish banquet was underway, celebrating the competition. Within the hall, the nobles mingled, forging new connections. Oscar surveyed the room, his eyes scanning the likely contender. Thanks to the age restriction, everyone appeared remarkably young. Even the slightly older attendants maintained a youthful air. Youthfulness pervaded the entire gathering. Amidst the crowd, one individual radiated a distinct popularity. At that very moment, Barry's became the center of attention, surrounded by admirers. A bevy of girls clearly found him captivating. Considering his abilities, their interest was hardly surprising. This was a prime opportunity to gather intelligence on potential rivals, to learn more about the competition. Willie, too, commanded a considerable amount of attention. Oscar found the event remarkably vibrant. He even considered offering his brother some assistance. The younger boy clearly yearned for support, and was visibly disheartened by the prince's apparent disregard. The prince's perceived indifference stung. Unbeknownst to him, the prince simply wanted the young man to savor the moment. Seemingly, Oscar's profound capacity for love appeared to be a paternal inheritance. Wenli had long awaited this moment, a dance with her brother. Unbeknownst to him, she was a skilled dancer. Royal blood demanded it, dancing was a necessity. She sensed his unease and wondered at its source. If not for his current circumstances, he too could have graced the competition. He possessed the talent, after all. Oscar admitted to idealizing him. Talent, he declared, is but a fleeting mirage. Without dedication, it withers and fades. Such attention, he insisted, was unwanted. It held no significance for him. His dream, a life unburdened by worry. His sister teased, likening his words to those of an old man. Their banter ceased as someone approached, seeking Princess Win. Jealousy flared within Oscar. Who was this lanky intruder? He was taken aback by the man's familiarity with his sister, judging by Winnie's expression. The reunion was far from joyful. Undeterred, he approached the princess, shoving our protagonist aside in the process. He was clearly eager to engage her in conversation. She politely declined his advance, explaining that she was in the midst of a discussion with her brother. The young man couldn't mask his disappointment. He promptly apologized for his breach of etiquette. Then, he introduced himself to our protagonist. He revealed himself as Boltus, the seventh prince of his kingdom. Let's just call this character the cheerful fool. Our protagonist was about to offer his own introduction, but the cheerful fool already knew his identity. Despite this recognition, our protagonist remained unimpressed. The cheerful fool inquired about the protagonist's presence. Our protagonist replied simply. He stated he was there to support his brother in the competition. He expressed surprise at being pushed aside by the cheerful fool, especially after his identity as a prince was revealed. The extra offered the prince a pleasant stay, refocusing on Princess Winley. He declared he would claim victory in the competition and dedicate it to her. She deemed this gesture unnecessary and disrespectful to the other competitor. The overly enthusiastic young man argued it wouldn't be rude at all, as long as he emerged triumphant. She countered, reminding him her twin brother would also be participating. Such a boastful promise, she insisted, diminished her brother's ability. Taking the prince's arm firmly in hand, she led him away, leaving the boisterous youth behind. A sense of satisfaction washed over our protagonist. His sister, he saw, was perfectly capable of handling herself. However, he thoroughly disapproved of the other man's conduct. He knew this wasn't the end of it. Approaching the princess, the man questioned if she was intentionally slighting him. Our protagonist recognized the man's escalating aggression. He had pushed our protagonist's patience to its breaking point. Subtly extending a foot, he tripped the advancing man, while discreetly restraining him with a single hand. Feigning innocence, our protagonist claimed his hand had simply slipped. He fiercely cautioned the jovial man against touching his sister. He advised him to count his blessings for escaping unscathed. Any injury, he pointed out, would jeopardize his tournament participation. But the jovial man man, fueled by humiliation, grew even more enraged. His fists clenched, he delivered a gloved slap to Oscar's face. Initially bewildered by the gesture, Oscar realized he'd been challenged to a duel. Apparently, the jovial man hadn't deemed his prior humiliation sufficient. His sister attempted to intervene. He ordered her to stay back, declaring it a matter of knightly honor. He insisted this duel was necessary to uphold his knightly pride. A woman's voice cut through the tension, accusing him of causing a spectacle. The blonde woman's identity was known to everyone present. Having witnessed the entire incident, she addressed the jovial man. To Oscar's astonishment, she posed a pointed question. She questioned his right to reclaim his lost honor. She was Harris, the renowned sword goddess, hero of the fallen empire. A woman who had ascended to become one of the continent's dominant forces. The inscription revealed her as the original wielder of Caldaris, the legendary blade. And more, she was the creator of Claymore, a lost, devastating sword technique. Claymore masters commanded the very seas, summoning tsunamis with each swing. Their blades could reshape the ocean's fury, a power beyond comprehension. Our protagonist's mind raced, could this be Harris? But the truth was even more astounding. She was Princess Eliana of the Fallen Empire. Her presence sent ripples of shock and awe through the assembled crowd. Our hero was equally stunned, his composure shaken. The princess's uncanny resemblance to Harris left him bewildered. After all, he'd been certain Harris was a man. Now, inexplicably, she was a woman. His thoughts, it seemed, had betrayed him. He'd voiced his astonishment aloud, directly to the princess. Her intense gaze pierced him as she demanded to know his meaning. Her proximity, her scrutiny, made him acutely uncomfortable. He stammered, claiming a mistake, a misidentification. The princess's stare didn't waver, its intensity unwavering. Our protagonist, flustered, feigned forgetfulness. How had this encounter spiraled so wildly out of control? The commotion even drew his brother's attention, curious about the unfolding scene. The princess refocused on the boisterous fool. She accused him of disrespecting everyone present. This woman, known as the Emperor's forbidden treasure, commanded attention. Her charisma was undeniable. She declared, if the fool truly valued his knightly honor, he owed an apology to the offended guest. Seething with humiliation, the fool burned with rage. Our protagonist, anticipating a prideful refusal, recognized an opportune moment. Before the fool could utter a word of apology, our protagonist declared the duel accepted. His sister was instantly gripped with worry, but our protagonist wouldn't let the fool escape his impending wrath. The princess deemed the fight pointless. Our protagonist retorted. The decision to accept was his alone. He challenged the fool directly. Do you truly desire this duel? Because if it's a beating you seek, a beating's coming his way. The wooden sword felt unfamiliar in his grip. His brother's worry was palpable. This opponent wasn't just anyone. He was a contender in the upcoming fencing competition. Don't worry, he reassured his sibling. That oblivious fool had called himself an amateur. He should quit now, before dragging his brothers down with him. Kneel, and forgiveness would be granted. The offer only fueled his brother's rage. It's fine, the prince interjected. Actions, after all, speak louder than words. Wouldn't you agree? He challenged the fool. If I lose, the extra conceded. I'll kneel and admit defeat. Don't come crying to me later, our protagonist warned. The clash was finally about to begin. The fight was on. Our protagonist calculated his next move. He maintained the facade, playing the part of someone just emerging from a 6-year coma. He concealed his true abilities, refusing to reveal his full potential. His demeanor remained utterly nonchalant, carefree. Happy Fool inquired if he felt any fear. He'd been anticipating the prince's initial strike, and now, a prime opportunity had slipped through his fingers. A brilliant strategy suddenly sparked in our protagonist's mind. He declared he would unleash his full might. He launched a fierce assault, charging directly at Happy Fool. The boy, taken aback by the sheer velocity of the attack, witnessed the protagonist's expert swordsmanship. Intentionally, he let his weapon fall. Happy Fool, sensing a chance to retaliate, was struck before he could even register the thought. He was present, yet utterly unresponsive. Happy Fool briefly lost consciousness. His sword went airborne as the protagonist feigned ignorance, acting the oblivious fool. He innocently questioned if Happy Fool had actually been hit by such a simple move. Questions arose about why he endured the initial strike without retaliation. The elder nobles observed the unfolding humiliation. A stark disparity in skill became undeniable. This discrepancy only intensified the extra's rage. He craved to extinguish the protagonist's carefree smile, to end his life. He scoffed, claiming that with Happy Fool's limited ability, actually killing the protagonist was a pipe dream. Steel clashed repeatedly as the duel continued. The fight proved tougher than Happy Fool anticipated. He found himself under relentless pressure. He observed the protagonist's clumsy stance. It was clear he struggled to control his raw strength, yet, overcoming him remained a surprising challenge. Happy Fool's pride refused to accept defeat. His arrogance blinded him. However, Happy Fool possessed genuine swordsmanship skill, and, crucially, he knew his limitation. He sensed the impending, savage blow from the protagonist. The blow landed. The impact shocked him. The assembled nobles watched the duel's unexpected outcome unfold. Happy Fool lay defeated on the ground. Seemingly, the battle was over. Oscar offered another apology for the strikes he'd landed. Humiliation hadn't deterred Happy Fool. He craved more. He felt he could still entertain the crowd, offer more spectacle. But then the whispers of the nobles reached his ears. Their so-called prodigy had been struck, not once, but 3 times. Doubt crept in. Was he truly as skilled as the rumors suggested? Rage consumed him. He slammed his fist into the earth, cursing the noble's ignorance. Yet, he lacked the will to rise again. Oscar recognized the blinding fury that held Happy Fool captive. It was for this very reason he'd mastered a particular fencing technique, the technique, Drunken Sword. Its name was apt. The user moved with an almost intoxicated unpredictability. Its creator, the most notorious drunkard among heroes, the great, idolized, the brilliant Dako Jun. Even the sword god himself found the technique captivating. Its unpredictable, dangerous nature made it truly remarkable. Thus, our protagonist mastered the technique. Observing the boy's mastery, its creator grasped the true danger it posed. A chilling laugh escaped him at this realization. The sword god cautioned against its reckless use, reserving it only for those truly deserving obliteration. The protagonist needed a sense of responsibility. Even its creators considered the technique a grave taboo, perhaps due to its overwhelming power and its inherent unpredictability. But these weren't the true source of their apprehension. The style's core lay in deceit, in manipulating the adversary. Its purpose wasn't protection, but the taking of lives. Its aim, utter humiliation before all who watch. Despite this, the style remained devastatingly effective. The single flaw? Its inevitable provocation of the opponent. Once more, with masterful precision, Oscar sent the flamboyant fool tumbling to the ground. The larger the crowd, the more potent this tactic becomes. Case in point. Oscar mused aloud, questioning whether he was simply fortunate, or if his opponent was genuinely this inept. He was relishing the moment. This style of fencing suited him perfectly. The princess remained a keen observer of the duel, until the flamboyant fool's blade ignited with an eerie glow. A menacing glint entered his eyes. Consumed by rage, he lost control. He vowed to end Oscar's life then and there. The atmosphere instantly shifted, the duel taking a dangerous turn. It was a spirit sword, and Oscar's siblings were gripped by fear. But the flamboyant fool declared it was too late for second thought. Oscar knew that any more fortunate incident would inevitably arouse suspicion. Adding to his unease, he felt a constant, chilling gaze fixed upon him. The flamboyant fool lunged, closing the distance to Oscar. He believed he had caught the prince off guard. He lunged, aiming the blade's tip at Oscar's head, but the blow never landed. Confusion clouded his face. What had happened? Sudden realization, Oscar had dodged. His eyes locked onto Oscar, bewilderment still swirling. He struggled to process the unfolding event. With a swift maneuver, Oscar entangled his leg with his overconfident opponent, and the tables turned dramatically. The now fallen boy scrambled to recover. Futile. Oscar's opponent scoffed, though his words lacked conviction. That wooden sword, it caught me off guard. Oscar clutched his back, feigning pain. I lost my balance, he claimed, and tumbled. The nobles watched, equally perplexed. One thing was clear, the boisterous challenger was disarmed. Defeat was undeniable. Disappointment rippled through the noble rank, but Oscar's unexpected prowess left them impressed. This boy, who had been comatose for years, just a lucky break, Oscar modestly attributed his victory. They quipped he'd exhausted his lifetime supply of luck in a single, dramatic moment. The blithe, oblivious fool remained rooted to the spot, still lacking the nerve to rise. Meanwhile, the princess observed the unfolding drama, taking in every detail. It was, undeniably, a captivating spectacle. Yet, it failed to impress her. She remained unmoved. Dismissing the entire affair as absurd, she turned and departed the hall. Pity the fool who earns her disdain. He'll face the consequences. The cheerful fool had invited this upon himself, his fate sealed. Servants rushed to intercept the departing princess, attempting to prevent her exit. Our love-struck protagonist found the princess's icy demeanor intriguing. Her coldness only amplified his fascination, deepening his interest. Already ensconced in the carriage, he faced reprimands for his reckless action. The duel had caused a considerable uproar, a scandal of significant proportion. He attempted to placate his brothers, offering reassurances. He insisted that, ultimately, everything had resolved favorably. However, a cautionary word came from the boy, warning of the protagonist's fortunate escape. While his opponent might possess a disagreeable personality, his combat abilities were rumored to be formidable. A glimpse of this prowess had been displayed during their initial encounter. He'd been relentlessly pursuing the princess ever since. She, however, found his persistence rather irritating. The protagonist's scheme had unfolded flawlessly. His brothers, intrigued, inquired about his plan. He deftly sidestepped the question, changing the topic. His brother, unconvinced, attributed his success to mere luck. He expressed his hope that such fortune wouldn't strike again. But before he could finish his sentence, the protagonist seized his hand in a crushing grip. He questioned the source of the prince's surprising strength. The prince retorted, demanding not to be treated like an invalid. Yet, he agreed to heed his younger brother's counsel. The protagonist's true nature would eventually be revealed. The princess felt a wave of relief wash over her. She was overjoyed by her brother's unexpected prowess. He had managed to outsmart the jovial fool on several occasions. Indeed, the clown had never anticipated such a thorough defeat. The evening concluded with a dazzling fireworks display. Amidst the celebrating crowd, one figure seethed with anger. The jovial fool, now enraged, vented his frustration on the furniture. The servants attempted to pacify him, but their attempts proved utterly futile. The public humiliation he suffered was unbelievable to him. Humiliated before all, the arrogant boy, so consumed by self-importance, believed himself entitled to nearly everything the world had to offer. His thoughts drifted to the princess of the kingdom of Round. His interest in her, however, held an ulterior motive. He'd chosen her as his fiancée, driven by the swordsmanship of her future brother-in-law. After conversing with the queen, he'd been confident the marriage would proceed, but his actions had drastically complicated matters. Utterly devastated, he banished the servants from his presence, continuing his furious rampage, flinging furniture through the air. His emotional instability was on full display. He'd finally become a pitiable figure. His body, weary from the prolonged humiliation, was now physically spent. He vowed to destroy the one responsible for his disgrace. A disembodied voice echoed from the darkness, "Do you truly desire to kill?" He was clueless about the intended victim's identity. The unsettling question hung in the air, repeated once more. Annoyed, Happy Fool demanded, "Who's there? Show yourself." A shadowy arm materialized, its owner's voice a chilling wisp. "I can help you eliminate your target," the voice offered. Happy Fool appeared entranced, ensnared by the shadowy figure's allure. The shadow promised a gruesome end for the protagonist. He pressed for the enigmatic being's name. "Cheerio," she hissed. "Remember it well," she added, a hint of amusement in her tone. "From now on, for clarity's sake, she'll be known as the Smoke Weirdo." Happy Fool was completely captivated, lost in her gaze. He moved towards her, as if compelled by an unseen force. The Smoke Weirdo savored his approach. A flash of fangs revealed her predatory nature. "I'll handle the rest," she purred. Happy Fool was free to indulge his whims, his dark desires unleashed. By the next morning's light, the Colosseum stood ready. Oscar received word, his brother was about to enter the fray. His brother's battle was imminent. With the fight fast approaching, Oscar continued his mana cultivation, pushing his limit. A long journey still lay ahead, observed by his ever-watchful attendant. "It's nothing," Oscar dismissed. "Just thinking aloud. But let's go. Some things can wait." Barris had already arrived at the arena, poised and ready in the stands. His sister awaited the spectacle. A chorus of cheers erupted for him. Within the Colosseum walls, a figure sat contemplating. A palpable sense of self-satisfaction radiated from him. A sinister smile played across his lip. He seemed to relish the prospect of another's humiliation. The crowd buzzed with anticipation. They were captivated by the impending competition. Inside the arena, a competitor made his introduction. Our protagonist observed the audience's rapt attention. He had no interest in amateur bouts. He arrived just in time for his brother's match. Claiming to feel slightly under the weather, his sister had secured him a shaded seat. She inquired after his health. Suspecting yesterday's exertions were to blame, he couldn't bring himself to reveal the truth being a severe case of explosive diarrhea. His incomplete mastery of mana still caused these episodes. Mastery would mean a farewell to such digestive distress. For now, these things just happened. Should his condition worsen, he'll resort to hidden powers for healing. At last, Barris stepped into the arena. Our protagonist observed the crowd's apparent adoration for his brother. He then turned his attention to identifying his own adversary. The reality of his matchup defied all expectation. The duel's arrangement proved unexpectedly brutal. His opponent, the infamous Happy Fool. The blades were blunted. Fable strikes were expressly forbidden in this contest. Mana-infused swords would incur penalties for competitors. Caution was paramount. Happy Fool appeared keenly aware of the regulation. Our protagonist took note of this fact. The audience was thoroughly captivated by the unfolding match. The princess harbored concern for her brother's well-being. Excessive zeal could lead to injury. Our protagonist reassured her of Barris's considerable experience. He assured her that Barris would emerge unscathed. He further added that Barris had a safeguard in this particular match. The princess, however, remained perplexed by this cryptic remark. The referee beckoned both competitors forward. A protective barrier materialized, encircling the arena. The young men stood poised, ready to clash. With a decisive gesture, the referee signaled the start of the duel. Both warriors launched their attack, surging forward. Our protagonist observed a spark of talent in Happy Fool. His brother, however, relied on brute force, dealing passive damage. Stylistically, Barris held a clear advantage. Moreover, it seemed unlikely Happy Fool could withstand the sheer impact of Barris's blows. He would surely try to evade direct confrontation. But something unexpected unfolded. A smug grin spread across Happy Fool's face. He blocked the initial strike. And now, he pressed the attack, pushing back against the protagonist's brother. The crowd roared its approval. The warriors battled fiercely, captivating the awestruck spectators. Our protagonist sensed something amiss. Happy Fool's improvement had been astonishingly rapid. His skills had surged dramatically, seemingly overnight. Such immense power, wielded for so long, would inevitably reach its breaking point. His grip on the sword faltered. The protagonist's senses sharpened, picking up on subtle anomalies. A pervasive strangeness filled the air. Something felt distinctly wrong about this duel. Moreover, he'd never witnessed such swiftness from his brother in combat. Could he be evolving, improving mid-fight? Witnessing this ignited a fire in the protagonist, a desire to train, to push his own limits. A wave of pride washed over him, seeing his brother's progress. The old childhood dream, the aspiration of knighthood, resurfaced. Perhaps this was the reason for inviting the prince to the competition, a chance to showcase years of relentless dedication. And now, the evidence was undeniable. He'd poured his heart and soul into his training. But one thing remained inexplicable: the fool's sudden prowess. Mastering such a technique in so little time seemed impossible. He fought like a different man entirely. Coupled with this was the protagonist's unsettling premonition, a dangerous instinct. He shot to his feet, his sister startled. A premonition hanging heavy in the air. Barris, a formidable force in the duel, found his swordsmanship unexpectedly challenged by the cheerful fool's resilience. He recognized a worthy adversary, tenacious and skilled. Despite his unorthodox, unpredictable fighting style, the duel neared its climax, a decisive blow imminent. Barris aimed to test his opponent's limit, launching a final, devastating strike to conclude the match. The extra calmly awaited the impending attack. Barris's blade descended, a deadly arc, destined for the cheerful fool's skull. But in the final moment, a chilling grin materialized on the fool's face. Caught off guard, Barris faltered, forced to divert his own attack. His opponent seemed to invite death, a reckless abandon that disrupted Barris's rhythm. This suicidal tactic created an opening, a fleeting vulnerability. Barris lunged again, seeking to capitalize, but the unexpected occurred. The cheerful fool unleashed a surge of mana. The attack was unavoidable, a complete surprise. The sword's point found its mark, piercing his chest. The grim realization hit Barris: a wooden replacement might be his future. The protagonist's brother had been immersed in practice the previous night. His movements were precise, executed with practiced mastery. The prince commended his brother's impressive fencing skill. He had sought refuge outside. His brother's training had made sleep impossible. He decided to observe his brother's progress. The impending competition had kept Barris away. He then brought up the cheerful fool to the protagonist. Despite his brother's victory over him, he remained unsatisfied. He vowed personal vengeance, a complete destruction. The prince offered reassurance, telling him not to fret. He expressed complete confidence. He believed his brother would excel in the competition. Amidst his training, he paused to read. His brother's form was impeccable, fluid, and refined. A genuine and equally graceful flow emanated from him. He contemplated offering a subtle helping hand. If discovered, his methods would undoubtedly create quite a stir. But even for his own brother, Oscar wouldn't hesitate to employ such unorthodox technique. Barris sensed something approaching, only to find it was Oscar's hand. He offered a simple massage. He instructed Barris to close his eyes and relax. Unbeknownst to Berries, Oscar began manipulating his mana channel, a process not entirely without discomfort. Berries soon registered the massage's increasing intensity. The perceived massage effectively masked the true nature of Oscar's action. Oscar remarked on his brother's apparent tension. The massage became so intense, Berries longed for it to end. But Oscar cautioned him, it wasn't over yet. He was stimulating Berries' mana with his own, hence, the painful reaction. While seemingly innocuous, this technique was entirely unheard of in their world. He then told his brother. He casually mentioned a place renowned for incredible massages. With a swift, open-handed strike to his brother's back, he muttered something in an unfamiliar tongue. Barris's curiosity piqued, wondering about the strange word, oblivious to the true nature of the situation. That seemingly innocuous strike was the final act. The boy crumpled, collapsing to the ground, utterly spent, while his brother wore an expression of satisfaction. He'd successfully accelerated his brother's mana flow. Perhaps it wouldn't offer immediate advantage in tomorrow's battle, but it would contribute to his long-term growth. This sparked a new idea in the protagonist's mind. He urged his brother to rise quickly. Sleeping on the ground could bring illness, he warned. With that seemingly caring gesture, he offered a subtle form of insurance. Berries felt a flicker of annoyance at his brother's method, but the protagonist countered, claiming deeper care than apparent. He advised bed rest, or the full massage experience. That was enough to prompt a hasty retreat. Barris was already making his way towards his room, totally oblivious to the protective magic circle Oscar had cast upon it, a silent assurance of his brother's safety. Cheerful Fool's blade met an invisible barrier, unable to reach the boy. The magic circle held firm, deflecting the attack. Its force was so potent, it sent Cheerful Fool's sword flying back, leaving both combatants in a precarious standoff. Mid-battle, confusion rippled through the audience. No one understood what had transpired. For a fleeting instant, Happy Fool's sword blazed crimson, and there, kneeling on the ground, was Prince Barret. Enveloping him was something akin to an invisible shield, a mana shield. The crowd erupted in cheers, invigorated by this unexpected turn. A mana shield, a technique mastered only by the most skilled. Even his sister was awestruck. She searched for Oscar, eager to share the news, but he had vanished. Arist appeared to have sustained some injury, prompting the referee to call a timeout. Happy Fool was ordered to retreat from his opponent. He had also violated the match's regulation. Furthermore, he'd attempted to assassinate his adversary, an act with the potential to ignite a devastating war. He was swiftly cautioned about the severe repercussions his actions could unleash. Happy Fool's attendant attempted to intervene, but the prince offered no words in response. Instead, he erupted in violence, seizing the extra by the throat. He hoisted him into the air, raw power surging through his grip, until, with a sickening crunch, the extra's head detonated. The lifeless body crumpled to the ground. Horrified gasps rippled through the stunned witnesses. Screams echoed throughout the arena. Prince Happy Fool had committed murder. He glanced down at his blood-soaked hand. A chilling satisfaction seemed to wash over him. Outside, the oblivious crowd remained unaware of the carnage within. A growing sense of dread prompted many to flee. They surged towards the exits in a desperate crush. One thing was undeniable. Prince Happy Fool had descended into utter chaos, his reason shattered. Consumed by madness, he had transformed into a monstrous entity. His reign of terror had to be stopped, and swiftly. The situation demanded individuals with the power to quell the threat. Today, our protagonist stepped into the fray, ready to face the challenge. He sensed this was his opportunity to rise to the occasion. His first priority was his brother's safety. He checked on the boy, confirming his well-being. Barista, however, remained preoccupied with the competition. Our protagonist offered words of reassurance. He praised Barista's performance, highlighting his prowess. Between coughs, Barista expressed his hope that the prince had witnessed his display. He revealed he'd even conjured a mana shield. The protagonist listened intently, absorbing every word. He still couldn't bring himself to reveal the full truth. Such barriers are self-generated defenses against imminent threat. They serve as a protective shield in times of peril. Mastering this technique requires considerable skill. He had cast the shield around his brother as a precautionary measure. He silently acknowledged that his brother's safety was solely due to his own intervention. He's just 14, after all. Seriously, what are these kids being fed? A pubescent teen with the visage of a grown man? But our hero silenced his brother's musing. His brother needed to recover, and quickly. So, he put the boy to sleep. Security swiftly escorted the unconscious boy from the arena. Meanwhile, Happy Fool's destructive rampage continued unabated. Our protagonist knew he had to intervene. He advanced, ready to end the chaos once and for all. The mages resorted to fire magic, triggering a massive explosion around Happy Fool, but they were uncertain if magic could even affect him. As the smoke cleared, their fears were confirmed, utterly useless. Worse, a sinister smile still played upon his lip. He had become too powerful for the mages to handle. They needed to evacuate the audience immediately. The barrier wouldn't hold much longer against such power. Unseen, our protagonist slipped into the arena's center. He was finally noticed. "What are you doing here?" they demanded. This place was far too perilous for someone in his fragile state. His presence there was simply unacceptable. They insisted he leave. They tried to force him away from the danger. Even his sister, witnessing his position in the arena's heart, grew anxious. There he stood, at the very center, a beacon of concern. He was baffled by his swift arrival. How did he get there so fast? Happy Fool seemed to have lost all control, possessed by an unknown force. He brushed aside all attempts to restrain him, a whirlwind of unrestrained power. His bloodlust was palpable, radiating a chilling aura. The protagonist suspected an infection, something sinister at play. "He's changed," he observed, "too much, too fast. Just one day, and now I have to deal with this." He knew a confrontation was inevitable. Happy Fool's power was truly frightening, intimidating even the seasoned mages. Even they were held back by a primal fear. They were determined to keep him away from the prince, a protective wall of magic. But their defenses crumbled, their efforts futile. They fell, defeated, before the protagonist's very eye. He could have intervened, could have saved them. Yet he remained motionless, a silent observer. Anticipating Happy Fool's approach, he waited, only to be jolted by his sister's sudden voice. Unaware of her brother's hidden power, his sister's oblivious interjection placed her in immediate, grave danger due to his carefully guarded secret. Oscar, our naive protagonist, looked back, his heart sinking. He realized the situation was spiraling into something far worse. The menacing presence of Happy Fool pressed upon him once more. If this escalated, his sister's life hung precariously in the balance. Frozen in indecision, caught between thought and action, he was suddenly yanked back by the collar. Thrown aside, he was ordered to move, out of the way. Oscar hadn't realized others shared the same sentiment, that he was too slow. He was deemed an obstacle. Standing before him, a figure of power, Princess Alina. Several soldiers lay defeated, already vanquished. But the princess was different, on another level entirely. Her power was overwhelming, radiating an aura of dominance. Happy Fool's attention snapped towards this formidable woman. She stood ready, sword poised for the final blow. Her intent was clear, a swift, decisive end. Focusing her mana intensely, she unleashed a ferocious strike aimed squarely at the cheerful fool. The impact registered, the boy visibly affected. Destructive energy rippled outwards, engulfing the arena. Still grounded, the protagonist's gaze was fixed on the woman. His sister's voice cut through. "Are you all right?" A bitter feeling arose, his opportunity snatched away. The princess, poised, awaited the outcome of her attack. Her eyes, unwavering, locked onto her opponent. Sudden shock registered in her gaze. The cheerful fool stood, remarkably unscathed. His rage intensified. Unleashing his full power, he roared across the arena. Mid-scream, a figure descended upon him. The princess, a flurry of blows raining down on the boy. A sword proved ineffective. What havoc she intended with bare hands, only the gods knew. He stumbled back, forced to yield ground. The princess pressed forward, ready to continue the onslaught. She slammed the boy into the earth with brutal force. Stepping back, she assessed the damage inflicted by her bare hands and feet. Had she accomplished with raw power what her sword couldn't? The onlookers were awestruck by the sheer display of strength. The princess was clearly a force to be reckoned with. And now, the boy, utterly overwhelmed, lay motionless on the ground, unresponsive. Witnessing the beating, the crowd believed the princess had decisively won the duel. Subduing the boy now seemed a mere formality. Recognizing the danger, the protagonist's sister urged a swift retreat. She knew the precariousness of their situation, but the protagonist remained consumed by anger. This woman had robbed him of his moment of glory. Yet, observing her movements, he recognized a superior technique, unmatched by anyone present. A sudden, intense glow emanated from the princess's crown. She knew the boy had transformed into a vampire. Our protagonist didn't move. Transfixed by the unfolding event, the princess's relentless assault continued. The jovial fool, now utterly incapacitated, faced his imminent demise. But the boy had one last trick up his sleeve. A subtle movement of his hand hinted at something more. Oscar recognized the gesture, a chilling premonition washing over him. The jovial fool had driven a blade into his own chest. Even the princess gasped, stunned by the gruesome spectacle. Despite the fatal wound, the boy's smile remained fixed. He was employing a forbidden technique, a secret of the bloodsucker. A crimson mist, thick and ominous, began to materialize. It rapidly expanded, engulfing the entire Colosseum. Oscar knew he had to protect his sister. The mist carried a toxic presence, a danger to all who inhaled it. His sister was already succumbing, her consciousness fading. "It's all right," Oscar assured her. "Don't worry," he soothed, "this mist is nothing." She looked at him, searching his face. His preternatural calm reassured her as he urged her to rest. When she awoke from this unsettling dream, everything would be back to normal. He bided his time until sleep claimed her. Now, the true task could begin. This energy demanded immediate attention. Failure to control the necromancer's energy meant catastrophic commingling with the other energy. The energy pulsed, a restless, rebellious force, upon merging with his mana. It had achieved sentience, a third distinct power. Each possessed its own unique personality. The necromancer's essence, pure, unadulterated chaos. A potent weapon in battle, normal mana its counterbalance. Initially challenging, it soon revealed its dependability. Yet, the most defiant, the sacred power. Obedience wasn't in its vocabulary, and the laziest of the trio. Inaction meant paralysis. He had to act, and decisively. A luminescence bloomed before him. Success! A fourth-level blessing graced his sister. A radiant beacon pierced the swirling mist. Her safety was assured, at least for the present. With improved visibility, he could better assess his surroundings. The technique's name, City of Blood, sent a chill down his spine. It drained the very life essence of those trapped within its crimson mist. Currently, the protagonist's sacred power was limited to the fourth level, insufficient to rescue everyone in the arena. Not that he felt any particular obligation to do so. Still, he was relieved his brother had escaped unharmed. Happy Fool's appearance had undergone a radical transformation, and with no witnesses, the protagonist decided to have a little fun with the situation. The princess had withstood the attack, but barely. She was at her limit, her sword shattered. Seeing the prince still standing shocked her. He appeared completely unaffected. The protagonist realized this was the worst possible outcome. The only one still conscious was Princess Elena herself. And she wasn't called the Sword Saint for nothing. A true romantic at heart, our protagonist, even on the brink of oblivion, was struck by her beauty. He approached. His hand rested gently on her shoulder. Instantaneously, she registered the contact. A strange sensation washed over her. He asked her to stay put. The inherent danger of the situation was palpable. Happy Fool resembled a monster more than a man. Stepping back, he simply requested she remain clear. Utterly bewildered, she grasped his hand. His apparent lack of injury baffled her. His unscathed state was incomprehensible to her. He met her gaze, silent. He hoped she'd grasp the precariousness of their predicament, but it was undeniably complex. 6 years lost in a coma. Awake for mere months. And now here, nonchalantly shrugging, he admitted his own lack of explanation, turning a blind eye to the reality of the situation. He was determined to be her knight in shining armor. His only hope was that his rescue attempt wouldn't earn him her utter disdain. The headstrong princess, however, ordered him to leave immediately. This, she declared, was a challenge far beyond his capability. Our love-struck hero, however, noticed her diminutive stature. The princess pointed out his fortunate escape at the banquet. But this, she stressed, was an entirely different predicament. This was the domain of the nocturnal nobility, ancient, bloodthirsty demons known as vampires. The prince remained utterly unperturbed. None of this impressed him in the slightest. The princess warned that someone unable to sense mana would be ripped to shreds. Escape, she urged, while he still had the chance. Our protagonist doubted the creatures would permit his departure. The princess, however, vowed to minimize any casualty. He observed her unwavering stance, despite her evident fear. Perhaps, he thought, she might actually prove dependable. Unlike the previous day, her resolve now appeared genuine. She confronted her as if battling a nemesis from a past life. That explained the unwavering resolve in her eye. Droplets began to fall. The princess navigated the castle's echoing hall. A figure materialized, resembling her mother. But this was a grotesque, twisted version. Terror gripped the young princess. Her teddy bear tumbled to the floor. She listened to the rhythmic dripping. But it wasn't water anymore. The memory remained etched in her mind. Now, she faced a mortal enemy. She vowed to eradicate these beings, to tear them out by the roots. This became her life's mission. The creature before her swelled with power. It fed on the life force of others. The princess's resolve hardened. But the antagonist struck a swift blow to the princess's neck, all while maintaining a disturbingly polite demeanor. She clearly misunderstood, he excused her ignorance. Oscar stated flatly. Her vampire obsession baffled him. He wasn't interested in the story, not now. He had no time for folklore. Staying out of his way would be preferable. Confused, she pressed him for clarification. Observe, he instructed, gesturing for her to sit. His fist clenched, energy coalescing around him as the creature lunged. The attack commenced. It had been a while since he'd unleashed this particular technique. No one alive knew vampires as intimately as he did. Among the living, he was unmatched in his knowledge. An infected pawn enhanced by that technique posed no threat. I can send you to the afterlife, he promised the creature, as many times as you desire. He deflected the attack with a mere backhand, the force sending the creature sprawling. Foolish creature, he scoffed. You haven't learned. Its time to learn had expired. Now, he would unleash his true power. A direct hit. The blow landed squarely on the creature's heart. Its time had come. Time to return to dust. The sheer force of the attack was breathtaking. The creature was sent hurtling, a projectile of destruction. Its trajectory carved a path of devastation. Observing from the perfect vantage point, the princess was utterly awestruck. The scene before her defied explanation, exceeding all comprehension. Oscar had unleashed an astonishing display of raw power. Witnessing the complete carnage, the princess was speechless. She couldn't fathom how such a feat was possible. Having unleashed his fury, Oscar felt a wave of relief wash over him. With the enemy vanquished, the obscuring mist began to recede. But the princess remained stunned, her mind reeling. This was beyond belief. This shouldn't have happened. That monstrous creature had resisted knights, mages, even her own blade. Yet it fell to an ordinary human. A human who, to her perception, possessed no mana whatsoever. A human seemingly devoid of any magical power. As if his accomplishments weren't astonishing enough. This individual had been comatose mere months prior. Our hero extended a hand towards her. The girl's reaction? Pure terror. He was taken aback, her fear unexpected. Undeterred, his hand remained outstretched. Her mind raced, grappling with the situation. Despite a flicker of understanding, hesitation lingered. She was on the verge of accepting his gesture, until she realized his intention, to borrow her sword. Embarrassment flooded her. Her assumptions had clearly missed the mark. Composing herself, regaining her poise, she prepared to explain that the sword had shattered in battle. But this wasn't the sword he sought. He spoke of another, one kept hidden. The princess was bewildered. How did he know? He declared his victory entitled him to a reward. His request, to borrow the sword god's power. Divinely forged, it was entrusted to humanity as a bastion of defense, wielded by the hand of a god. Mundane minerals transmuted into precious jewels, refuse into riches. Across the continent, 12 legendary blades were dispersed, each a revered national treasure. Among these masterpieces, one was bestowed a name, Daira's, the Sword of Legend. Its name echoing its purpose, the White Guardian. This artifact transcends all other. Forged specifically for Harris, a friend of the Divine Smith. This god-forged blade possesses a unique attribute, an ego, a consciousness residing within its very metal. Its power, wielded at its own discretion. A concept seemingly extraordinary. But our protagonist, privy to the truth, already anticipates the nature of this sentient weapon. An unwelcome familiarity hangs in the air. Held by him, the sword recoiled, displeased. Its personality, a source of piercing agony in his mind, predictably, and rather rudely. I can hear you, Oscar assured the sentient sword. The magical blade seemed surprised, pleased even, at being acknowledged. A vibrating sword, eh? You've got some spirit, Oscar quipped. How about we work together from now on, he proposed. But the princess, determined, wanted her weapon back, reaching for the sword once more. She collided with Oscar, her momentum carrying her into it. At this rate, Oscar remarked, your wielder's going to collapse. She's practically being propped up by the sword itself. Yet, the princess remained stubbornly conscious. She refused to yield. Oscar recognized her resilience. Impressive tenacity, he admitted. You're genuinely skilled. Your opponent was formidable. Knowing your limits is crucial. The sword, protective, issued a warning. Don't harm her. I wouldn't dream of it, Oscar replied, his voice deceptively calm. He gave his word. But as he spoke, an intense glow began to emanate from his hand. The light coalesced, taking on a distinct form. A blinding flash erupted, illuminating the entire arena. The sword, now summoned, materialized, and rested firmly in our hero's grasp. With deliberate focus, he began to assess the weapon, a masterpiece of craftsmanship. The sword itself, oblivious to its wielded power, remained a mystery, even to its bound owner. Our hero observed its restless energy, a vibrant, almost vocal presence. All that was required was the release of its inherent might. He would handle the rest. Intrigued by this enigmatic wielder, the sword inquired as to his identity. Already channeling the sword's full potential, he answered with action. A celestial bolt of lightning, summoned and unleashed upon his foe. Proof undeniable of the sword's extraordinary power. Our hero, now empowered, posed a question. How much longer would his adversary remain cloaked in shadow? The time for unveiling had arrived. The strike ripped a fissure in the very fabric of the air. He had anticipated a vampire, but not one of such formidable strength. The woman's form finally emerged from the shadows. It was her, the enigmatic figure from the mist. A question burned in Oscar's mind. Had their paths crossed before? Her servant's defeat had brought her here. She hadn't anticipated such an outcome, especially not at the hands of this young man. Acknowledging her power, Oscar beckoned her down. He had something to reveal. He had a revelation to share, something worth descending for. You'll strain your neck looking up like that, he remarked. And from that angle, he added, your panties are quite visible. Dark, but undeniably appealing. The smoky, enigmatic woman bristled at his observation. Oscar already knew where. He launched an assault in her direction. He commanded her immediate presence. Perched atop the statue, the woman stood. Even with the vampires vanquished, international relations remained precarious. Dismissing her words, our protagonist declared her appearance a sign of confidence in her ability to defeat him. He implied her arrival meant she believed she could win. Cunning, perhaps. But he struggled to articulate his next point. He urged her to abandon her delusion. The eccentric figure seemed oblivious to the true situation. Her hand crackled with intensifying energy. She unleashed an attack, a whip-like force, directed at the protagonist. It resembled a whip, a lash of pure energy. The attack proved devastatingly powerful. A large section of the arena crumbled under its impact. The protagonist, however, merely dodged. He sensed the smoky woman's escalating fury. Her assault, however, continued unabated. Crimson flashes erupted, slicing through the air. Their trajectory, a direct collision course with our hero. Lethal blades, honed to a razor's edge, hurtled towards him. Oscar, unfazed, evaded the onslaught with effortless grace. But a persistent few remained locked onto his position, a shadowy pursuit. Now, evasion required focus, a true test of his agility. He transformed the arena into his stage, a whirlwind of acrobatic maneuvers. Then, the whisper of steel, his sword, unsheathed. The approaching blades met their end, shattered into oblivion. A mere trifle, barely a challenge worthy of his skill. The enigmatic, smoke-wreathed woman sneered. Even if he exceeded her expectation, he remained, in her eyes, simply human. Oscar retorted, and are you not a servant to a human, despite your vampiric nature? His words struck a nerve. The veiled woman, deeply affronted, unleashed her fury. Her whip snaked through the air, a venomous strike aimed at Oscar. Vampire lords, beings of immense power. Through inherited legacy, vampires ascend to this terrifying rank. Yet, even these formidable creatures possess a fatal weakness, their sworn enemy. The High Elves, their antithesis, their doom. They present a significant challenge, a true threat to anyone. The mentor posed a critical question. How would Oscar vanquish a vampire? Oscar's reply? Provoke it relentlessly, then subdue it through sheer force. The mentor found this approach intriguing, a novel tactic. It held merit against vampires, creatures defined by their overwhelming pride. The more powerful the vampire, the more susceptible they are to provocation. A lesson gleaned from the wisdom of the sword god himself. It appears they placed excessive trust in the princess. The battle rages on, unrelenting. Oscar continues his evasive maneuvers, dodging the onslaught of attack, creating space, seeking an advantage. He seizes an opening, launching a counteroffensive. Two fierce slashes, aimed with precision. But the enigmatic, smoke-wielding woman parries with her whip, creating a defense. Oscar is taken aback, her ability to conjure a barrier unexpected. He mistakes it for a blood barrier, his sword reacting with agitation. The sword corrects him, a vampiric barrier, a different breed of defense. She's a newcomer, but her lineage speaks volumes. She possesses the potential to ascend to lordship. Oscar declares they must act decisively, eliminate the threat now. The sword, however, seemed to doubt the feasibility of such a feat. Confronted by the sword's skepticism, our protagonist retorted with a sardonic inquiry. Does the blade deem this impossible? The blade offered no reply, remaining silent. The creature's irritation intensified. This human's demise, she declared, is both imminent and unavoidable. Even the wielder of the divine sword was vanquished. If a peaceful end is desired, surrender and embrace your fate. The enigmatic, smoke-wreathed woman unleashed a barrage of destructive attack. Our protagonist, however, not only evaded them, but closed the distance. He now had a clear opening for a surprise attack. The vampire, confident in her superiority, dismissed his efforts as futile. Her whip was poised, ready to meet his advance, but she was too slow. Our protagonist was already behind her. Tell me, he began. Did you just claim the techniques of the sword god? Proved futile. She's overlooking a crucial element in this battle. Her focus is locked onto the princess. Now, she's about to experience firsthand the true power of the sword god's technique. The vampire seemed to have been anticipating this moment. This was beyond mere practice. Our protagonist has honed this movement thousands of times. Now, the divine sword rests in his grasp. He warns, the consequences won't be pleasant. The vampire finally recognizes the imminent danger. The sheer pressure of the impending attack overwhelms her. Her barrier crumbles under the force. The protagonist's strike unleashes a cataclysmic explosion. The result is simply astounding. Our protagonist now understands the value of superior equipment. The sword seems pleased by the compliment. She starts to speak. But he quips about her talkative nature. She's clearly thrilled. After millennia of slumber, her materialized form was overwhelmed. He urged her to compose herself. The sword, intrigued, questioned his effortless mastery of her, especially his familiar, almost intimate, handling. Our protagonist, however, deflected, unwilling to delve into the past. He knew the truth was too unbelievable, even for a sentient sword. He was, after all, the disciple of her original master. The sword announced the vampire's presence had vanished. But she's not gone, the sword clarified. The protagonist wouldn't pursue her further. His focus shifted. His attention landed on the stone. The city of blood, the sword recognized, a place unseen for ages. The very memory of it still sickened her. Even now, revulsion clung to her. The explosion will propel the mist, she warned. It will linger, consuming all life within its reach. Only powerful magic, at its highest level, can purify this place. 6 months, at least. The protagonist understood the grim reality, the unspoken horror. Prolonged exposure meant infection, a fate worse than death. The sword surmises that those outside are wavering, unsure of their next move. Humanity, she believes, is likely gripped by despair. She deems the protagonist incredibly fortunate, despite his youth. He possesses the strength of a master, impervious to the mist's effect. He confirms his mastery to the sword. However, manifesting an aura blade still requires time. His strength stems from unconventional training. Millennia of training forged his mastery. This explains his overwhelming power. The sword becomes apprehensive about the boy's intention, sensing his mana. The sword now recognizes him as a monstrous being. She detects both holy power and necromantic mana within him. The coexistence of these powers is baffling to her. She realizes defying common sense is his very purpose. The sword finds this utter madness. But for the protagonist, it's the culmination of centuries of dedicated research. He plunges the blade into the earth. Their conversation ceased. The sword's turn to resolve the conflict had come. He possessed the necessary strength to control the situation. The sword demanded clarification. Oscar declared his intention to resolve the entire crisis. Upon hearing this declaration, the sword fell silent. Self-sacrifice for strangers wasn't his ideal, but if it facilitated his recovery, he would seize the chance. It was an opportunity to utilize his dormant ability, powers currently slumbering within him. Even if it deviated from his usual approach, inaction was not an option. He began a prayer, invoking Freya. He beseeched her for aid, knowing the goddess could answer. Observing this, the sword trembled with unease. The prayer was unfamiliar, unsettling. His divine power proved somewhat unruly. Its teacher had lost patience with its unpredictable nature. He's aware of the goddess's omniscience, her watchful gaze upon them. Thus, he seeks her divine sanction, her permission for what he's about to do. The sword doubts such a prayer will reach the ears of the gods, let alone be granted. Our protagonist, locking eyes with the sword, declared that the sword fundamentally misunderstands the nature of the divine. Divine favor isn't bestowed upon those who merely speak of it. It's granted to those who capture a god's attention, who pique their curiosity. And now, he's about to demonstrate the possibility of salvation, of rescuing these lives. His method? The legendary enchantment of Daphne, the greatest wielder of divine power. An enchantment so potent, it requires divine approval to be unleashed. He sees the gods, contemplates their whims, and deems them all quite mad, especially those already teetering on the brink of insanity. The sword senses a shift, a powerful surge of energy. It recognizes the sacred magic, a 9th-level enchantment. Its name, Divine Sanctuary. A blinding light erupts, intense and overwhelming. The sword, fearing for its existence, believes he intends to obliterate it, to drain its reserves completely, leaving it utterly extinguished. But the boy reassures the sword, promising it won't meet its end. Despite everything, a palpable anxiety gripped the sword. The magical radiance intensified, fissures spiderwebbing across the stone's surface. Unwavering focus consumed the protagonist, resolve hardened his gaze. Completion of the daunting task remained his singular objective. The incandescent glow glow, now blinding, engulfed the entire Colosseum. Outside, confusion reigned, the spectacle remained an enigma. Bathed in the ethereal light, the city pulsed with the magic's resonance. Gradually, the luminescence receded, withdrawing skyward, leaving a magical residue. Delicate feathers drifted down, remnants of a transformative power. Wings of pure energy now adorned the protagonist, a mark of his triumph. With this dramatic shift, the deed was done. The stone, their focus, lay obliterated. A potent shockwave rippled outward. Its force sent a jolt through the protagonist, a twinge of pain in his back. He inquired about the sword's condition, a flicker of concern in his voice. Silence met his question. The sword remained unresponsive. Overwhelmed by the surge of power, the sword succumbed to unconsciousness. Now, the sword lay inert, lost to the world. The protagonist fared little better, his strength rapidly fading. Collapsing to the ground, he felt the grip of unconsciousness pulling him under. His gaze landed on something unexpected. Before him materialized his status window, a display of his personal information. He expressed to Lady Freya that this was becoming overwhelming. The goddess, however, countered that this was merely the beginning. A truly restful sleep, free from worry, had eluded him for far too long. 6 months, at least, had passed without such peace. A sense of clarity washed over him, cleansing his mind. Then, the image of a magnificent princess filled his thought. That night, or what seemed like the same night, he awoke to his sister's voice. It felt as if no time had passed. A concerned inquiry followed. Was he all right? He was disoriented, unaware of how long he'd been unconscious. His sister revealed the unsettling truth. He'd been out for 2 full days. She confessed her fear, the desperate thought that he might never awaken. A wave of guilt washed over him. He'd caused her needless worry. The past, however, couldn't be changed. She recounted a dream she'd had. Within this dream, he had achieved the impossible, saving everyone before the encroaching red mist consumed them all. He offered his sister a comforting pat on the head, a smile playing on his lips, keeping the dream's reality a secret. His sister, however, pressed him for honesty, demanding to know if he had been the one to dispel the red mist. Her suspicion stemmed from a discovery made while examining his unconscious body. A peculiar mark, an unmistakable stigma, had appeared on his back, and it was substantial, impossible to ignore. He considered the aching in his back, wondering if the stigma's emergence was the source of the pain, a pain absent during his time within the temple. The sheer size of the marking was also unsettling. It was the priest tending his wounds who first noticed it, and its discovery had sent ripples of unrest through the duchy. His unconscious form had been found near the sacred sword, bathed in an ethereal, divine energy. The stigma was interpreted as a divine sign, a mark of the god's favor. This quelled the potential panic. His sister simply sought the truth. The realization hit him then. The true events remained shrouded in mystery. He was left adrift, uncertain of his next move. He's grappling with uncertainty, unsure of the right course of action. Torn about revealing his powers, their implications a mystery. The potential consequences weigh heavily on him, an unknown path forward. He worries the revelation might exacerbate the situation, creating more harm than good. His memories remain fragmented, shrouded in a haze of uncertainty. To comfort his sister, he assures her of his complete physical recovery. His condition is not just improved, it's almost excessive, remarkably robust. The surge of divine energy he wielded has left a lasting impact. His sacred power has undergone a dramatic amplification. His mana reserves are now astonishingly vast, a reservoir of immense power. Every ounce of his mana capacity has expanded exponentially. He now commands the ability to manifest a unique aura blade, a new weapon in his arsenal. His previously stagnant divine power has seen the most significant growth as a result of this battle. He now craves further opportunities to cultivate and expand his burgeoning power. His sister points out the chaotic aftermath, the disarray left in his way. The situation is particularly challenging for his personal attendant. Flickers of memory return, recalling Amy from before he lost consciousness. His sister informs him of Princess Helena's persistent search for him. Driven by concern, she sought to provide him with proper medical attention. Oscar expressed his concern, suggesting his sister must be weary from caring for him. He added that he needed some time for solitary reflection. Before departing, she reassured him about Barry's safety. She emphasized Barry's continued well-being throughout. She then wished her brother peaceful repose. Oscar's understanding of the situation sharpened. He watched his sister retreat down the hallway. He observed her approach and interact with that unusual window once more. The whole scenario felt strangely game-like. He puzzled over its sudden appearance. Perhaps it was triggered by his earlier prayer, or maybe it was a consequence of the magic he'd used. Magic intended solely for use within his astral form. The complexity of it all overwhelmed him. Then, a mysterious voice materialized. It observed his apparent enjoyment of his newfound telepathic ability. Stunned, Oscar fell silent. He strained to locate the voice's origin. He demanded to know the speaker's identity. Who was this unseen presence that dared approach him so stealthily? A voice from the shadows caught his attention. The disembodied voice spoke, then its source materialized before him. Her shock was palpable, her seal, broken unintentionally. But if this was fate, she would embrace it. Oscar's mind flashed back to his training day. His mentor was engrossed in a painting. Who is that? The young Oscar inquired. Who do you think it resembles? His mentor countered. Studying the portrait's features, he ventured, a demon, perhaps, but so beautiful, she must be something more. His suspicion was swiftly confirmed. Why paint her? The boy pressed. Beyond her beauty, she's unlike any other. I've painted her so often. Her image is etched in my memory. Berserk, her name, when she still appeared human. I took her in, trained her in the art of the sword. Legend has it that to quell the great war and imprison the demon lord within his own blade, the lord bore the name Berserk von Fallen, a name the boy had encountered only once before. She was taken aback, a human recognizing her. His eyes, it seemed, did not deceive. The only peculiarity? Her diminutive stature. The girl issued a warning. She abhorred restraint. And this protagonist, she surmised, possessed a mischievous streak. His retort? Their acquaintance was too green for jest. This wasn't their maiden conversation, after all. Hostility was unwarranted. Our protagonist pressed for answers. What was the meaning of this? The Demon King declared their fates intertwined. She pointed to the mark upon his back. To him, her very soul was now tethered. Hence, the unusual size of the mark. It was, in essence, the Demon King's seal. Our protagonist found this far from amusing. This is utterly nonsensical, he declared. The Demon King inquired if he might untie her. She explained, this sort of thing isn't exactly my preference, especially in such a compromising position. It's rather mortifying, to be frank. Our hero obliged, releasing the Demon King. Why aren't you inside the sword? He questioned. I need a credible explanation, he pressed. Again. We are bound, she stated, finally introducing herself formally. I am Berserk, daughter of darkness, the demon king of the abyss. Ancient legends claim I ignited the war between humans and demons. The divine sword, Calderas, was said to have ended it, or so the stories go. But in truth, my soul was sealed within the blade. Our protagonist struggled to process the information. Could this individual truly be the formidable Demon King? She hardly resembled the terrifying figure of legend. She realized Oscar was already aware of her presence, her identity. Then she spoke, explaining that Calderas wouldn't cruelly imprison a friend's soul. Had she foreseen this, she confessed, she wouldn't have offered any farewell. Determined to clarify, she revealed the truth. The stigma, she explained, had transferred her essence to him. It was, she claimed, by the will of the god. Oscar hoped for a more convincing explanation. Her frustration suggested she had nothing more to offer. She attributed it all to his holy powers, insisting he bear the responsibility. The Demon King declared her interest in him, because he was only the second to unlock the divine sword's full power, its ultimate potential. Oscar countered, claiming he merely employed Harris's technique. The Demon King picked up on something. She noted he spoke of Harris as if they'd met. Oscar confirmed this, stating Harris had spoken of her frequently. A flicker of emotion crossed her face. He remembered her. His honesty, his lack of concealment, resonated deeply. Yet, he requested her silence, a secret pact formed. A curious deception, considering her omniscient nature. Lying to a demon king, one who pierces illusions, perplexing. She corrected his presumption, a subtle shift in understanding. The demon king saw no souls, only borrowed insight. Her power stemmed from a higher authority, a channeled wisdom. He questioned, the status window? That divine interface? A window to the demon king, once worshipped as a god by humanity. He was surprised by the candid assessment from these higher beings. Such a blunt description, unexpected from a divine source. He held no expectations of the entity who bestowed his power. The demon king expressed intrigue, captivated by his uniqueness. A shared journey, a world explored together, her sole remaining desire. Immortality's burden, a quest for novelty in an endless existence. He inquired about the benefits, his pragmatic nature surfacing. Her abilities, now his, a symbiotic exchange of power. A familiar mechanic, reminiscent of games from a bygone era. Skills acquired, knowledge unveiled, a hint of his past revealed. For her, this arrangement is remarkably advantageous. She's eager to witness the direction he leads them in. Upon further reflection, Oscar acknowledges the allure of her capability, yet, he also recognizes his limited option. He resolves, from this moment forward, to forge a cooperative alliance. Finally, he has a confidant, someone to share his secrets with. Several days elapse. and the kingdom remains in a state of upheaval. The emergence of a stigma has further fueled the unrest. At the heart of this maelstrom stands Oscar. Observing the gathering crowds, Pursuit notes their growing numbers. Popularity, it seems, is a heavy burden. She proposes that Oscar reveal the truth. He dismisses the suggestion. The majority of the gathering consists of priests, drawn by the stigma. Recognizing it as a symbol of divine love, the Demon King empathizes with their fascination. Such a phenomenon is as rare as the birth of a saint, a sporadic occurrence. A momentous decision, made once a century, propelled the protagonist into action. He issued an urgent command: his siblings must pack, and pack now. Explanations would have to wait, time was of the essence. His siblings, however, understood the unspoken urgency. They knew the relentless influx of visitors weighed heavily on his mind. The youngest remained perplexed by the constant pilgrimage to that particular spot. It seemed unremarkable, hardly hallowed ground, but the protagonist knew its sacred significance, the weight of history it bore. In fact, half the city held a similar sanctity, steeped in untold story. Escape was paramount. They had to leave, and swiftly. Finally prepared, they resumed their perilous journey. The demon voiced concern. Was such a hasty departure truly wise? Pursuit seemed inevitable. They were sure to be followed. The protagonist, however, dismissed the threat. His focus remained elsewhere. News reached the princess the following day: she had been deceived. Fury consumed her, a rage that burned even brighter in the aftermath of recent events. He had vanished without a word, without a trace of explanation. The narrative being spun, she knew, was a fabrication, a carefully crafted lie. The princess craved the truth. What had truly transpired? His flight confirmed her suspicions, fueling her determination to uncover the hidden reality. Consumed by fury, she's lost all control. Even her most devoted servants are stunned by her outburst. The princess, once detached and apathetic, now burns with fervent emotion. She commands the soldiers to prepare for an immediate march. The carriage advances towards the protagonist's kingdom. His siblings sleep soundly, unaware of the impending event. In this tranquil moment, they appear remarkably harmonious. The demon questions, "Isn't it a waste?" Her words allude to Caldera's potential. She's observed the protagonist's interest in the sword. He, unlike its current wielder, possesses the strength to command it. He's the ideal candidate to inherit its power. But he understands the sword's insatiable hunger for greed, and he won't be capable of wielding such potent magic again soon. He needs time to replenish his depleted reserve. The demon remains confident in his ability to repeat the feat. He simply needs to reclaim the sword. The protagonist refuses to see something that belongs to a child. Furthermore, he believes the sword is not meant for him. His preference, blades of substantial size. He's on a quest, searching for the perfect instrument of his will. He knows what he seeks, its purpose already clear in his mind. The demon senses a preoccupation, a hidden thought. Our protagonist is unaware of her penetrating gaze, her ability to perceive his inner world. She reveals a crucial detail: her knowledge, while vast, isn't absolute. Even the Demon King has limits to her all-seeing power. Peering into his thoughts, she encounters locked doors, inaccessible chambers. Certain aspects remain shrouded, hidden from her view. Trivial matters, for instance, escape her grasp. Pursucker observes. The stigma's arrival will leave his adversaries perpetually on edge. He advises seizing this advantage, exploiting their unease. But our protagonist prefers a more measured approach, opting for preparation. The queen's influence stretches far and wide, a formidable obstacle. Dismantling her power base will require strategic planning and time. This entrenched power fuels her arrogance, her unwavering confidence. Meanwhile, our protagonist appears to have formulated a plan. The king praises his son's accomplishments, commending his effort. The young man, however, remains. He emphasized his son's priority was a safe return, placing the blame squarely on Boltez. The king held Boltez accountable for the mission's failure. Later, in a private conversation with Oscar, he inquired about the divine stigma. Oscar confirmed the god's interest in him. The king then asked about the queen's reaction to this divine favor. Despite her seething resentment, she maintained a facade of approval, acknowledging it as a positive event. Oscar questioned the queen's sincerity. Hesitantly, she doubled down on her feigned support. Inwardly, however, she yearned for Oscar's downfall. Oscar, amused, relished her forced performance. The king instructed the duke to lodge a formal complaint with the alliance regarding the incident. Acknowledging everyone's fatigue, he encouraged them to rest. He dismissed everyone to their quarters, but requested his eldest son remain. Oscar complied. Father and son retreated for tea and a private discussion. It was their first real conversation since the incident. Following the boy's recovery from his coma, the king inquired about any lingering resentment. The protagonist's response: he saw no value in dishonesty. He insisted that such matters demanded open expression. Furthermore, he revealed the constant surveillance on his home. The king was clearly taken aback by the boy's awareness. The king appears to maintain a steadfast belief in his own righteousness. A parent's intuition recognizes a shift in their child. He sensed the transformation in Davy post-awakening. Despite acknowledging his own paternal shortcoming, he was surprised by the boy's desire for a meeting. The boy harbors a question for the king. Recall his desperate plea to the king for aid, driven by his mother's illness. The boy's desperation was palpable. The king's response? He ordered the child's removal. Torn from his familiar surroundings, the boy was left utterly alone. His only hope was some form of paternal intervention. At the tender age of 9, he learned of his mother's murder. Even then, the king remained evasive on the subject. He accuses her of hiding behind her illness. He demands to know why his father discarded the woman he swore he loved. He believes his father sacrificed love for the kingdom's stability, a strategic marriage into the enemy's rank. The boy has no interest in his father's romantic history. A man consumed by love, much like the sun's constant blaze. He seeks one truth: did his father truly feel nothing? His mother's constant reminiscing about her husband haunts him. She died with apologies on her lips. The boy needs to know his father's true feeling. The only response: become king. A failed king, a failed father. Kingship demands difficult decision. He tells the boy to harden himself, grow stronger, become unstoppable. That's the extent of his explanation. He understands. The king hadn't forgotten his first wife. Children often mirror their parents, he muses, but not him. He would never sacrifice his family for the kingdom. Fury explodes. He slams his fist on the table. He questioned the very essence of kingship, challenging whether this coveted position should be bestowed upon another, more willing candidate. He declared he wouldn't accept the role, even as a gift freely given. Following this pointed exchange, he retreated to his chamber. The demon king sensed the boy's sharp words, their undeniable sting. Yet, he recognized the necessity of such a blunt confrontation. Her opinion held no sway. It was irrelevant to his resolve. He would alter his stance, shift his position regardless. Her supposed omniscience was a fallacy, a comforting illusion. Finally, he possessed a definitive answer, a clear path forward. Announcing his intention to retire for the night, he instructed Amy to ensure his solitude remained undisturbed. The boy swiftly approached the window, a new purpose gleaming in his eye. He contemplated the descent, the plunge into the rabbit hole. The lair of the Black Moon Guild awaited. News of Sherry's disappearance rippled through the underworld. Her assassins, loyal shadows, had vanished some time prior. Now, she too was gone, leaving no trace behind. The regional leader was aware of the fate that befell her subordinate. Their failed attempt on the prince and his siblings had sealed their doom. A female voice broke the silence. Deploying an A-rank informant was unnecessary. We already had minimal intel on her identity. Her vanishing act only deepens the mystery. Furthermore, her previous targets remain alive. Observing a true assassin's capabilities could prove valuable. The androgynous man spoke, his voice laced with confidence. I'll deliver the bodies of her victim, along with the head of the suspected traitor. His arrogance will be his undoing. Sherry, an A-rank assassin, possessed extraordinary skill. Any assassin of note recognized her inherent danger. To fail and then disappear spells disaster for him. The regional leader planned a swift exit. He'd tie up loose ends and flee the city. He pressed a button, his heart pounding. No response. His anxiety intensified. It was a last resort, a desperate cry for help. Silence meant the worst had already happened. A wave of panic propelled him from his chair. A voice commanded him to freeze. His subordinate, once present, was now eliminated. The regional leader was pinned, helpless against the desk. The attacker, surprised to find a human, not a vampire, before him. A desperate scream, intruder. A frantic attempt to summon aid. But within the building, all were incapacitated. Realizing this, the man's desperation turned inward. His silence born of the attacker's overwhelming power. He knew his fate would mirror the others. Could this be the work of a rival guild? But even they wouldn't be this efficient. Perhaps this was an inside job, orchestrated by his superior. The enigmatic assailant offered a chilling choice. Do you want to live? Survival was possible. But at a price, information. The leader, grasping at straws, agreed. Had official channels been pursued, things might be different. But this enigmatic figure sought knowledge beyond the reach of coin. Desperate, the captive offered the information sought, hoping for reprieve. Intrigued, his captor loosened his grip. The demand was simple, he claimed. He desired a comprehensive roster of every aristocrat sworn to House Variety, and more, irrefutable proof of their corrupt dealing. suspicions had been aroused. Evidence pointed toward the duchy amassing noble support for its own agenda. Such machinations must surely leave a paper trail. A flicker of defiance sparked in the captain, but the chilling reality of his predicament swiftly extinguished it, forcing a grim acceptance. Cooperation is non-negotiable, or face the ultimate consequence. That enigmatic figure spells true danger, a master of the assassin's craft. He offered the victim another chance, a final warning perhaps, for lie detection is his particular expertise. Deception is a futile tactic here. His path, however, remains his to choose. The man understands the anomaly, a master assassin in this backwater kingdom. He compiled scrolls, entrusting them to the assassin's capable hand. Our hero knew the road ahead would be arduous. The documents are riddled with false identities and superfluous data. The search must continue relentlessly. Hence, the apt moniker, the rabbit hole. He addressed the Demon King directly. More intelligence is vital to cleanse the aristocracy's corruption. She foresaw the inevitable bloodbath, but our protagonist vowed to eliminate them all. The rules of engagement must be honored, aristocrats or not. No one stands above the reach of the law. His aim? An audience with one of the kingdom's legendary swordmasters, specifically, Peltrice, the very knight who served as his mother's personal guard in her lifetime. This knight received a document, its contents casting a dark shadow of concern upon his face. Driven by this worry, he sought the butler, desperate to uncover the messenger's identity. Meanwhile, the protagonist's carefully orchestrated cleansing operation was already in motion. He observed the unfolding events with keen eyes, a silent overseer of this crucial theater. The Demon King, watching from the shadows, harbored a question for him. She scrutinized our protagonist, her interest piqued, her gaze unwavering. What is it that he truly desires, she wondered. But the protagonist countered, suggesting she already held the answer within her grasp. Despite this, she yearned to hear the truth articulated, straight from his lips. The goal, she perceived, was undeniably transparent. He seeks to mend the fractured bonds of his family. He longs to eradicate all causes for apprehension within these walls. His ultimate aspiration, to live a life of extended peace and tranquility. A burst of laughter escaped her, for the life of a noble is riddled with obstacles, and, in her estimation, he already basks in a life of relative serenity. He questioned her, asking if that was truly his outward appearance. She conceded that his journey was far from over, much work remained. The kingdom, she declared, demanded fortification. The royal family's domain is surprisingly modest. Our hero seeks refuge there, yearning for tranquility and a simpler existence. He intends to leverage his past life's wisdom in this new haven. However, the demon finds this aspiration lacking in definition. She presses him, does vengeance hold no allure? Our protagonist clarifies it as a step, not the destination itself. Revenge is a means, not the end, for life continues beyond. His words resonate, and the demon offers a potent alternative. She proposes he seize the throne, reshape the nation's destiny. But a peaceful life eludes a king's grasp. Our protagonist has already charted his course, his mind is set. Living in that place isn't the ultimate aim. Instead, he'll forge a future so compelling, a place worth returning to. The queen is being informed. They declare the prince's mark should be celebrated as a national symbol of pride. She wholeheartedly embraces this sentiment. She suggests a fitting honor be bestowed upon it, a reward of considerable stature, perhaps mirroring his earlier land grant. Her suggestion, dispatch him there, also that his contributions to the kingdom might amplify. Yet, her praise of the first prince struck some nobles as quite peculiar. They saw it as more than it seemed, this fawning over royalty. To her, this is nothing more than a meticulously staged performance. And the bowing, the deference, she loathes it. The assassination plot has crumbled, her most valuable asset vanished. To return empty-handed risks disgrace. She laments the missed opportunity to end him. Now, the path ahead is fraught with difficulty. She must remain vigilant. A revelation surfaced last night. Key intelligence has been compromised, leaked to the shadow. Every information guild in the kingdom, obliterated in a single night. The culprit, she's learned, is a master assassin of terrifying presence. An assassin whose very aura inspires dread. To pursue him is to court grave danger, and there seems to be no one in this kingdom capable of the task. Yet, the queen insists, for lost information is a peril too great to ignore. She stands on the precipice of peril. If this intelligence falls into the knight's grasp, it could ignite the flames of revolution across the kingdom. Her intuition screams that a single puppeteer orchestrates everything. Though evidence remains elusive, her conviction burns bright. In her mind, the architect of this chaos and the prince's protector are one and the same. Yet, hope flickers within her breast. She simply needs to eliminate that villainous obstacle. Only one path remains open. Legal exile to Milo, a harsh decree. That is where the bitter queen will now direct her venomous gaze. She proposed his banishment to foreign land. Expecting resistance, she was stunned by what transpired. The king, surprisingly, found the notion intriguing. The queen's shock was absolute. It's deemed inappropriate for a grown prince, not destined for the throne, to linger within the palace wall. This matter demands immediate attention. The king, too, seemed captivated by this prospect. He commanded the prince to be brought before him in the hall. The queen remains in the dark, unsure of his intention. Our protagonist, however, had foreseen this very moment. The king has seen the truth. His son is a volatile force, a danger waiting to erupt. Thus, the king seeks to usher him from the palace walls with utmost haste. Let him depart, and cultivate the land bestowed upon it. May his existence find its purpose, its brilliance, in this new endeavor. Our protagonist will embrace these very commands. The demon king perceived the king's unease, his apprehension toward his son's potential. Even had matters not reached this juncture, his course would have remained unchanged. For his purpose within those walls had been fulfilled. His continued presence at the palace was unnecessary. Events are unfolding precisely as the protagonist has orchestrated. He declared his departure would come when he was primed. The demon king sensed the turmoil in the king's heart, his lack of inner peace. For this transition threatens a great loss of life. But our protagonist remains unconcerned. The kingdom stands in dire need of reform. A transformation must occur before the next monarch ascends the throne. He desires to shield Barrys from inheriting such chaos, and this presents a compelling opportunity to vanquish his adversary. Following the announcement, he exited into the open air. His brothers are already on his trail, searching for him. They're driven by a need to understand his departure and the motivations behind it. Their intent is to appeal to the king, hoping to sway his decision. However, our protagonist's resolve is set. He simply desires to leave. He implored his brothers to have faith in the choices he's made. Even so, deep concern grips them, knowing his destination, the hind's territory. Should trouble arise, they urge him to confide in them. They vow to rush to his aid, even if it leads them to a desolate wasteland. For even there, life persists. You are the one who brings prosperity to that place, and he already anticipates the joy of his brother's future visit. Back within the palace walls, he summoned Amy. He tasked her with gathering all documents pertaining to the land. They're going to. She inquired if any specific document was required. But our protagonist's desire is for comprehensive access, everything. Simply state that the prince himself dispatched her. He needs to know his enemies. If they achieve this, knowledge of both the enemy and themselves, they will be invincible, he declared to the demon king. Words echoing from his past life, she found them genuinely captivating. Such circumstances, these very situations, ignited a spark of interest within her. Despite wielding immense strength and prowess, our protagonist remained untouched by arrogance, a remarkable feat. This humility intrigued her deeply. He, in turn, found her assessment rather peculiar. The demon lord remarked that her existence was remarkably dull. Unlike the vibrant life of our protagonist, he had never imagined the possibility of someone finding vicarious pleasure in another's life. But she insisted that our protagonist should take pride, for she was becoming an admirer. And indeed, her excitement was palpable, drawing in attention our protagonist actively sought to avoid. Amy, remarkably, returned with the documents sooner than anticipated. However, the prince noted the collection was less extensive than he had expected. Yet, these constituted the entirety of the documentation pertaining to that territory. Perhaps, he mused, this was ultimately for the best. Reduced bureaucracy would undoubtedly streamline his responsibility. The young prince then commenced his analysis of the document. Even the demon lady lent her expertise to the task at hand. The grim truth dawns, this land is cursed. Even the Lord questions how. Of all the plots, he inherited this forsaken one. Yet, our protagonist remains steadfastly grateful amidst the desolation. Preparations are underway, materials are gathered for their impending departure. It appears Amy will be the protagonist's sole companion on this journey. Their farewell will be a quiet, understated affair. But the truth remains, our protagonist commands no loyal knights. Such is his plight. He departs as if a mere wanderer, penniless and alone. But then, a figure arrives to bid him farewell. A knight, one who served his mother faithfully, appeared. He heard the prince was leaving. He declared that this boy possessed the potential to inherit the kingdom. The boy, however, expressed his doubts about such a destiny. The knight fixed him with a resolute gaze. He affirmed that the young man had matured considerably. If only the queen could witness his growth, she would be filled with pride. Our protagonist countered, claiming he would only bring disappointment to his mother's memory. If that were truly the case, the decree stated, the knight who once guarded her must return to his own domain. Our protagonist countered, that's a fallacy. He'd gleaned certain truths about this very man, secrets uncovered during his covert entry. The knight's unwavering inquest into the queen's demise. He offered aid to the protagonist, should the need arise, for he'd given his all to the cause. The prince cautioned, the knight's assistant could spark turmoil within the kingdom. The knight, a smile playing on his lips, declared, if it causes no strife, then my oath holds no meaning. Our protagonist vowed to transform that land into a thriving haven. He entrusted the knight with the capital's safekeeping. His hope, the night will purge the corrupt aristocracy, clearing the path for the protagonist's decisive blow. His arrival at his new domain is imminent. Turns out, it's situated closer to the capital than anticipated. The demon lord slumbered throughout the entire journey. Their partnership is already proving remarkably effective, and he's come to realize her extensive need for rest. Her materialization powers are still in their nascent stages, so he quipped that his legs aren't a free resting place, you know. The demon lord, however, dismissed such triviality. Gently, he covered her with a claw. Our protagonist observed that she is truly embracing life's experiences. The coachman's voice announced their imminent arrival. Their caravan has now breached the borders of Hein's territory. It's nestled in the kingdom's eastern reaches. Positioned near an age-old mine, it borders a region teeming with monsters. On the bright side, it's conveniently located along the route to the capital, and the land holds vast potential, provided the roads are diligently maintained. It could very well transform into a bustling trade route, but for now, the landscape presents a picture of utter desolation. This land was once renowned for its fertility. Now, it's barren, and the cause remains shrouded in mystery. He perceived. Through the system's lens, a malevolent force is indeed at play. Yet, he also gleaned that recovery is within the realm of possibility. The demon lord felt certain this was a curse, one she had already awakened to. There exists a type of curse that knows no bounds in its spread. Our hero was unprepared for the lingering shadows of dark magic in that place. The residue, surely, of a past occupant's malevolence. The land itself had fallen under a dark cloud, and so, our protagonist embarked on a mission of purification. But the task ahead promises to be far from simple. Curses of such age cling with tenacious power. Stepping down from the carriage, a question began to form. Was this entire region steeped in such darkness? Dark magic, a practice fading from the world's memory. How much the world has transformed. The princess's caravan met a checkpoint upon entering the city. Identification was the toll demanded at the gate. Guards stood watch at the city's edge. Even so, our protagonist couldn't ignore the unsettling laxity of the security. Yet, one should, at the very least, be grateful for this semblance of defense. For the city could be easily overrun by monstrous forces. Life within its walls would be untenable without the guards present. The guards sought to summon their captain. Yet, the prince dismissed it as unnecessary protocol. He explained he hadn't yet been formally invested as lord of those lands. He urged everyone to set aside their formalities and relax. They would, he assured them, be seeing much of each other from this day forward. The townsfolk greeted him with the reverence due to royalty. One of the guards stammered an apology for his initial failure to greet the prince appropriately. Our protagonist keenly observed the tremor in the man's hand. Injured and unnerved, he began a more meticulous assessment of the situation and the surrounding. He inquired as to the time elapsed since the messenger's arrival in the city. 2 days, the man replied, his unease still palpable. Even with this explanation, his anxiety remained strikingly evident. He even went so far as to request punishment for his perceived failing. The prince, however, pressed on, seeking to pinpoint the onset of the monster attack. The guard struggled to decipher the prince's line of reasoning. He was clearly perplexed by the prince's prior knowledge of these events. Our protagonist declared his intent to cleanse the land of its curse. His initial target, the goblins plaguing the region. That very man standing before them was the head watchman. His shame ran deep, for he bore responsibility for the safety of this entire region. His given name was Meter, but now he is known simply as Mustache. The protagonist perceived the weight of the man's worries concerning the land. He sensed his concern for the people. He acknowledged the inherent challenges of overseeing such a region. He urged him to continue his commendable effort, and that is precisely what he intended to do. Our protagonist also observed that the fruits of his labor were already evident. He elevated the watchman to the rank of official guard. His hope was that Mustache would take on the crucial role of training them. He affirmed the man's possession of the requisite skill. Therefore, he declared his official employment. He further noted that as their skills developed, they would be bestowed with titles. Given the prince's authority to grant such honor, these represent his ideals for the journey ahead. En route, he discovered tracks left by the creature. Goblins had infiltrated the castle wall. He sought to understand how such a breach could occur. Constant attacks had left the guards weary and wounded. Dozens of homes had been consumed by flame, and many of the townspeople had been taken, spirited away against their will. Our hero inquired, seeking to understand the city's dire straits from within. He discovered their stores could sustain them through winter, a fragile hope amidst the gloom. But the year had been cruel, a season of hardship and scarcity. Examining the resources now at his disposal, he made a grim calculation. The prince wouldn't last 2 years, he concluded, a stark assessment. The demon lord, ever observant, noted this silent prophecy. He extended an offer, proposing she become his personal assistant. The offer, however, met with a firm refusal. Her reason? A profound fondness for the solace of sleep. It appeared he was left with no other recourse, no alternative path. He then revealed a handful of platinum coins, their gleam promising relief. He charged his newly appointed guard to procure food and materials for repair, urgent necessity. That should provide some respite, for the time being, he declared. The sheer enormity of the sum did not escape her notice. Our protagonist reassured her, urging her not to fret. The funds, he insisted, were acquired through honest means. A secret unspoken, the truth of their origin, pilfered from thieves. The demon lord, pragmatic as ever, countered. Even so, he stated, the money remains tainted. This crucial undertaking would be spearheaded by the head butler himself. The entire operation was projected to span 4 days. The prince's hopes rested squarely on their shoulders. Thus commenced the vital cleansing process. He issued a summons, ordering all troops to assemble. Only a skeletal force remained, entrusted with the site's protection. For optimal impact, the rescue efforts needed to be executed with speed. He extended his gratitude to everyone present. Introducing himself, he declared his intent to become the region's lord. The populace was already aware of the citizen kidnapping. Fear and outrage, no doubt, gripped their heart. Gazing upon them, he discerned that potential wasn't universally distributed. Unlike Bigode, our very own protagonist, she articulated clearly. She had zero intention of being caught defenseless in this territory. These were the words of one among them. Escorting guards into this monster-infested land? A certain death warrant. The prince queried if he had already resigned himself to surrender. But the man countered, knowing the prince hailed from the capital. The dynamics, he noted, were vastly different in that realm. Should this assault fail, the monsters will retaliate without mercy. The prince, however, has pledged his unwavering success to them. Even as he readies for battle, he is keenly aware of the people's low opinion of him. They see him as just another self-absorbed noble, nothing more. And frankly, it's a sentiment difficult to dispute. He declared to the people he is not merely a prince, but their lord, whether they accept it or not. They are his subjects, his very family, and he will not stand by and watch his family perish. If his words fail to convince, then they must trust the divine mark etched upon his body. But if even that's not sufficient, then let them perceive him as a tyrant and follow him out of sheer terror. He values each life and will not permit a single one to end without his consent. Despite this impassioned plea, the citizens remained skeptical. Later that night, a voice admitted his speech held some merit. The gathered soldiers, a seasoned and weary group, await the prince's battle strategy. Meanwhile, the demon lord observes that he's been enjoying a rather peaceful existence. All that stands between them and victory are those 150 soldiers. For any goblin force that dares to outnumber them, awaits a swift and decisive execution at the prince's own hand. The destination is reached, announced one of the men. Across the divide, the goblin horde comes into view. The setting, an eerie, abandoned city. Goblins and orcs, thought the protagonist, sworn enemy. Patrol reports confirm, the creatures are massing here. They have stolen something precious, one of the men's daughters. The prince cuts to the heart. Do you feel the rage? Do you desire to obliterate these vile creatures? Or will you fight to honor your fallen comrades? He demands. The answer rings clear, revenge. He sees the incandescent fury burning in their eye. They crave vengeance for the fallen, even for those they barely knew. Our protagonist surveyed his newly acquired land with satisfaction. Then, he loosed an arrow, a missile aimed at the heart of the foe. Distraction seized one goblin. It remained blissfully unaware as its companion was felled by the arrow's deadly strike, the thud of the body hitting the earth. The creatures sowed panic. Direct confrontation was impossible for the soldier. Yet, he reminded his men of a vital promise they must hold on to. I will not let a single one of you perish, he vowed. Still, a palpable terror gripped the rank. The creatures sensed they were under siege. Our protagonist, a master archer, could have trained with Apollo himself. His skill was born from mastery of the bow, truly exceptional. He had no intention of resorting to brute force against these adversaries. He would not hesitate to take up the broom if needed. His goal, to sweep the city clean of this infestation. Before the men, he began to emanate his divine power. Then, he issued his first command. In that instant, he raised his hand, a signal of power. He unleashed a technique that amplified their very being. They couldn't even begin to fathom the magic at play. But each and every one of them, without fail, had been empowered. The protagonist believed he was simply performing a minor act of charity, yet he had unleashed a potent enchantment upon the world. Few possessed the capacity for such a feat. Even the most devout paladins from hallowed grounds would find this a formidable task. This calls for the intervention of a priest, indeed, one of significant power, our protagonist. With a gesture, our protagonist granted his men leave to unleash their pent-up fury. He'd been anticipating this very moment, eager to try a particular strategy. This piqued the demon lord's curiosity. A subtle smile played on his lips. He declared his men had grown strong, commanding them to attack. The demon lord was utterly bewildered. These men were already consumed by a thirst for vengeance. They immediately began their merciless execution of the creatures. The expressions etched on their faces tell the whole story. They appeared to be in the throes of absolute ecstasy. Danger held no fear for them. On the contrary, their power was overwhelming. They crushed the creatures with such ease that even they were astonished. It wasn't a battle, it was a complete and utter massacre. One of the soldiers sustained an injury. Our protagonist swiftly moved to heal his wound. The soldiers were taken aback. Our leader's words resonated. Divine power is not absolute. He declared no one under his command would fall. Therefore, swift preparation was paramount. He warned that any injuries sustained would be accounted for. Once they were back within the city wall, his soldiers, eager to impress their new lord, surged forward. Observing the ferocity of his newly forged army, he couldn't help but wonder if this was the true face of berserker fury. A flicker of sympathy almost touched him for the goblins facing annihilation. Ultimately, the battle was decisively won. The prince personally inspected the battlefield, ensuring complete victory. He was met with the resounding praise of his men, a sentiment he clearly savored. Yet, he cautioned against premature celebration. The mission to rescue the kidnapped still lay ahead. His intention was to instill within his rank a delicate balance of fear and respect, but alas, they were already irrevocably in awe of the prince. Regardless, the grand design was unfolding as intended. Their spirits soared heading into the next day's battle. Their enthusiasm remained unwavering, and victory was theirs once more. The city's soldiers hoped this new lord would prove to be a just leader, especially since he departed with such a small force. One remarked he was but a boy of 16, perhaps blinded by the intoxication of his first triumph, until a voice cut through, asking their purpose. Shouldn't they be dismantling the barrier? Soon enough, the lord made his return to the city. The two guards stood bewildered, trying to grasp the situation. Their surprise was palpable. He truly vanquished the creatures? With just 10 guards and 3 knights? The prince certainly hadn't anticipated such a reception. The people's faces mirrored a profound astonishment. The demon lord observed. His actions were as potent as a drug to these people. At this rate, they might forge a religion in his name. The prince cautioned. There were surely creature settlements still lurking. Thus, they embarked on routine cleansing missions. Forces crucial for the city's defense were deliberately left behind. With that, he dismissed his assembled men. He observed their palpable admiration, a feeling so strong. He harbored the hope that such fervor would wane in due time. The rovers themselves moved with unmatched swiftness, faster than the very wind. Even now, a considerable number of citizens showed the lord an abundance of kindness. Fierce disputes even arose over this veneration. Such potential idolization began to sow seeds of regret for certain choices within the prince. He had, without a doubt, won the unwavering confidence of the populace. Was a noble truly obsolete in this land, perhaps? At least, that is the sentiment the citizens had previously held. Yet, he had gleaned a vital lesson from the conqueror. Axiomatically, no matter the size of the domain, he governed not livestock, but people. Their allegiance must stem from genuine volition. The protagonist might not have studied politics under his tutelage, but he had indeed absorbed invaluable wisdom. The demon lord now seeks intelligence on the land's condition. Now, armed with a deeper understanding, our protagonist eagerly seeks her insights on the entire situation. Can the curse be broken? She believes that in 5 years, the land will be restored, and within 2 decades, it could blossom into his envisioned paradise. This transformation hinges on more than just his own capability. She possesses further thoughts and perspectives on the land's fate. The protagonist is keen to hear every nuance of her evaluation. The region currently lacks a proper water infrastructure. Furthermore, meager harvests have led to dangerously low food reserve. Compounded by job losses, his financial investment may prove insufficient. The crux of the problem lies in a severe scarcity of essential resources. Historically, the region has never been a source of profit. But if the obstacle is merely financial, our protagonist believes he holds the key to the solution. A proposition that piques the demon lord's curiosity. He is taken aback by her reaction. This land possesses significant untapped potential. Given that their primary means of sustenance is hunting monsters and animals, the next logical step would be cultivating crops within the region. First, they must confront and break the curse's hold. Commerce is the final key to unlock this solution. Yet, the region lacks any commercial incentive, a crucial obstacle. Moreover, our protagonist has declared their independence from human trade. Therefore, the immediate course of action, a thorough inspection of the land, every resource, every possibility within their grasp, must be utilized. He's always envisioned a structure rising from that land, a long-held aspiration. Now, a vast expanse of land is his to command. This land, once a farm, was seized from its previous owner, a harsh confiscation. It now falls under the protagonist's dominion. Concealed within its depths lies the very origin of the curse, but given his current limitations, magic alone cannot restore this blighted land. With calderas, perhaps, he could succeed. He even contemplated borrowing the princess's legendary sword. Pride radiates from her. The thought, feigns simple inspection to gain temporary access to the blade. Yet, the demon lord advises against this maneuver. Self-reliance is their only viable path forward. Our protagonist observes, complaints have been frequent of late. Intrigue mounts as the demon lord seeks the identity of the individual he mentioned. His enigmatic reply, she will soon discover the truth. For a certain child yearns to display their prowess. He urged her to proceed while the opportunity remained. A grand magic circle materializes beneath them, etched upon the ground. Never before has the demon lord witnessed such a formation, and for good reason. Its architect hails from a distant continent, its magic foreign and potent. This magic speaks in a language utterly unique. Dark mages would require a multitude of artifacts, and a significant investment of time to weave a curse designed to guide the protagonist to its very source. Patiently, he awaits the outcome. It appears he has identified a flaw and now moves to remedy it, a task that demands considerable effort from him. Turning away from the demon, he seeks her insight. He probes, does this truly bear the hallmarks of a curse? For it lacks the familiar essence. According to this magic, a space is manifesting, akin to a heated chamber. Their journey then led them to the region's outermost boundary. It was there, at that juncture, that they arrived at further conclusion. The quest for the curse's source continues unabated. The demon lord's curiosity, however, remains piqued. She now questions whether the persistent drought and the barren wasteland are also manifestations of this curse. The protagonist acknowledged a certain interconnectedness. Yet, his magic pinpointed the curse's primary function, a singular effect. It is the maintenance of a very specific condition. Prolonged persistence in a region, he warned, invites complication. The original purpose remains shrouded in mystery, but the destructive power unleashed upon this land is undeniable. Gazing at the scale of devastation and contemplating the problem ahead, our protagonist's thoughts turned to the possibilities. What if, he wondered, he could alter this condition? Could this blighted landscape be transformed into a thriving tourist destination? In the distance, he finally discovered incredibly ancient ruin. He never imagined a place so arid could conceal such a sight, unquestionably predating the Great War. Perhaps even the clandestine dark mages were oblivious to this hidden region. The area was eerily silent. He had anticipated stumbling upon at least a tavern. Scarcely had the words left his lips when a colossal stone entity materialized before them. Embedded in the creature's visage was a mystical stone, pulsing with power. A magical being, undoubtedly, the demon lord surmised. The presence of a mana stone is a clear indicator. She cautioned the protagonist to exercise utmost care. Such a creature may possess unforeseen and formidable ability. However, a peculiar scent filled his senses, a unique aroma. Suddenly, one of the stone figures lunged, attempting a strike. This aggressive act served as the confirmation our protagonist needed. Swiftly, he ascended, now perched atop the head of one of the creatures. His hands made contact with the pulsating mana stone. The peculiar scent intensified, growing stronger with each passing moment. It was the alluring fragrance of the fortune he was about to acquire. Back in the city, the guards reveled in this tranquil period. The Lord had embarked on a patrol of his domain. The guards held no anxieties regarding his safety. Their confidence stemmed from the certainty of his safe return, especially after he unveiled a miracle not so long ago. No one anticipated such benevolence from a noble, given the history, because within that kingdom, a noble's power correlated directly with corruption. The more influence they wielded, the more tainted they became. The region's sole advantage, a tax break, was all it received from the kingdom, and even that was a protracted battle, seemingly for no reason at all. Then, unexpectedly, they dispatched this boy to rule those lands. Common belief held that he'd lost a political struggle, and this assignment was his penalty. Regardless, the people were powerless to change the circumstances, and they remained under constant assault by monsters bold enough to infiltrate the city and abduct citizens. The situation rendered any rescue attempt utterly impossible. As if matters couldn't deteriorate further, a noble from the capital arrived in the city. Despite his amiable demeanor, The populace remained unsure of what to expect from this youth. They feared he would punish the captain of the guard for his failure. Within the townsfolk, a simmering discontent brewed, ready to ignite. They were merely observers, poised, watching the drama unfold. But the prince, with unwavering resolve, took the region's burdens upon himself. He even devised a strategy to combat the goblin menace. He issued a rallying cry, a call to arms for a family-wide rescue of the kidnapped. The prince's words and actions became a catalyst, reshaping lives in their way. Yet, he explicitly cautioned against viewing him as a saintly figure. In a matter of days, he ascended to a position of greater significance to the townspeople than even their god. For in truth, a man who performs miracles holds more sway than a god who merely observes. So speaks one observer. The monster threat is gone, thankfully, a significant victory. But the land's fate remains uncertain, shrouded in doubt. Years of relentless drought have taken their toll. Can the parched earth ever be fertile again? The question lingered. Even the castle grounds, once untouched, lands that once knew the kiss of rain, are now succumbing to the drought's grip. Investigators have come and gone, searching for answers, but the drought's source remains a mystery. The townspeople have lost hope in human solution. They believe no mortal hand can bring back the rain. They fear their land is doomed to wither and die. Complete desiccation seems inevitable, a ticking time bomb. Spirit stones, mana-infused minerals of immense power. Unlike common mana stones, their potency is magnified 100-fold. Our protagonist's fascination with them is clear. The creatures vanquished, the battle won. He pauses, taking a much-needed breath. The intensity of the fight still hangs in the air. The demon lord, however, has other plans. He's burning with curiosity to ascertain their true value. Acquiring 20 at once is unprecedented. They're exceedingly rare on this continent. The demon advises caution in their sale. Undue attention could be drawn, a consequence he'd rather avoid. Within the ruins lies a spirit stone of colossal proportion. It is the very core, the heart of the pervasive curse. The truth about this stone must remain hidden, lest it ignite wars between nations. Its discovery could destabilize the entire continent. The ore's purity is exceptional, almost otherworldly. Harnessing the stone's magic would grant access to the power of 9th-level enchantments, an almost unimaginable feat. Our protagonist begins to sense this immense power. The language he observes within is unlike anything he encountered outside. There are clearly secrets yet to be unearthed within this place. Secrets unknown and tantalizingly out of reach. He's still deciphering the intricacies of this complex system. Understanding the algorithm is key to manipulating it. His attention is captured by a peculiar snippet of code. A minor adjustment, a subtle tweak. The numbers shifted, their colors morphing. The core began to warp, culminating in a dramatic transformation. The blue light surged and turned emerald green. The protagonist's intervention had triumphed. Witnessing the event, the demon lord demanded an explanation. The land had suffered a protracted drought. He decided a gift of rain was in order. But within the city walls, a different scene unfolded. Guards toiled, reconstructing the city's defenses. They looked up in astonishment as rain began to fall. The downpour was completely unforeseen. Rain washed over the city, a shocking development. Water seeped into the parched earth. The situation was precarious. A worst-case scenario had materialized. The nobles, gripped by fear, fretted over the consequences. They plotted to obliterate any trace of their involvement. Lower-ranking nobles had already been purged without hesitation. They questioned the resentful queen's response, but even they struggled to comprehend her motive. It appears the first prince has manifested a stigma. The mark, located on his back, is reported to be unstable. The Holy Kingdom finds itself in the same predicament. They are unlikely to accept the prince in this condition. The queen should disregard superficial concerns. Her focus should be on the true threat, namely, the king and Sir Petrus. The nobleman simply offered his perspective. The enigmatic man began outlining the situation. He asserted that noble unity won't dissolve instantly. They must confront their adversaries, even if bloodshed is the inevitable consequence. He questioned whether the other nobles concurred. Even if they agreed, apprehension was palpable. Retrieving the confidential information is paramount. Failure guarantees internal strife. He fixed his gaze upon a marquis in attendance. The marquis responded. He pledged to commence preparations upon receiving the command. Discretion is essential. Their hands are tied until all the pieces are in place. The prince's potential remains tragically underestimated by those present. Direct intervention is beyond even the noble's reach. Yet, his intuition screams, pointing him towards the root of the issue. There's a hidden facet to the prince, a secret yet to be unveiled. He suspects it might be dormant for now, but once the prince grasps the reins of power, his true capabilities will be unleashed. But even he will be powerless against the desolate Hind territory. Resigned, the noble retreated to his mansion. That land is a wasteland, a forsaken realm. Countless mages have tried and failed to revitalize it. The prince's fate will be no different. He's helpless against a land parched, untouched by rain. Unbeknownst to him, rain is now falling upon that barren land. The inhabitants are awestruck by the unexpected miracle. The reason for this miraculous rainfall remains a mystery. Locating those hidden ruins took the protagonist considerable time. The land needs more than a fleeting shower. Days of rain are needed before it can be cultivated again. The stone is his key to knowledge. It's a conduit, connected to a network of other spirit stones. These stones are dispersed throughout the region, granting him an unparalleled understanding of the surrounding environment. He can even command the very weather itself. After all, humans are a species that evolved on principles of efficiency. Utilizing the remaining spirit stone, he fashioned a secure repository for his belongings. Now, patience is key as the land begins its recovery. 1 week elapsed. The residents assemble, their fervor reminiscent of devoted followers. The sheer turnout astounds our protagonist, but they wouldn't let their prince shoulder the burden alone. He forewarned them of the demanding physical labor ahead, perhaps too strenuous for the elderly. The people adore their prince, hanging on his every word. He declared the day's task a simple one. He instructed the knights to demarcate the region's boundary, in preparation for clearing the entire area the following day. A 4-day endeavor lay before them. Feeling overwhelmed? No pressure, you're free to withdraw. There will be time to recuperate, and payment for everyone's efforts is guaranteed. Every worker will be compensated for their contribution. The knight acknowledged the recent rainfall, but the sheer scale of the land makes clearing it in 4 days seem impossible. However, the prince remains confident of success. Anticipation for another miraculous feat grips the onlooker. Yet, the knight's belief wavers. Despite witnessing a miracle firsthand, doubt lingers. His heart hesitates until a brilliant light erupts before him. Oscar infuses the workers with magical strength. Suddenly, the knight grasps the possibility of success. He, too, feels empowered by the shared blessing. The blessed workers are invigorated. Now, they can truly tackle the task with full force. Oscar contemplates the potential of Caldera. He envisions an area of effect spell. But a sword, he muses, serves a different purpose. The knight inquires about the prince's agricultural plans for the land. Quick profits, he points out, are limited to just a couple of avenues. Value, he explains, hinges on the delicate balance of supply and demand. The demon lord questions how the prince intends to manipulate both scarcity and demand. The boy's response is elegantly simple. He will cultivate moongrass. The knight is immediately intrigued. The entire territory, he envisioned, blanketed in the rare and valuable moongrass. This plant, he knows, is notoriously difficult to grow. Its cultivation demands very specific, exacting conditions, imported at great expense. It's highly sought after by alchemists and mages for their research. Commanding exorbitant prices, it is the epitome of a scarce commodity. The knight raises a concern: moongrass won't thrive in this climate. The boy counters, claiming divine intervention has blessed the land. Even the climate itself, he asserts, will be divinely favored. The reality, however, is far more pragmatic. He'll manipulate the weather with magic stone. Now, their next challenge, locating the forest's vegetarian. A gentle breeze delivers fallen leaves to a pointed-eared woman. Engrossed in her task, she pauses and glances towards the window. She silently invokes nature's blessings upon her approaching guest. The spirits had whispered of his arrival. Uriah is her name, and the green-haired man, her master. Medith, he who sought her out this day. She welcomes him in, assuring him he's always a cherished visitor. Tea is brewing, a moment of shared tranquility. Medith carries news, a weight in his eye. He speaks of a recent dream, a vision that disturbed his slumber. Uriah leans in, intrigued. What dream could prompt such an urgent visit? The elf pauses, a moment of heavy silence. A chilling revelation: the spirits cursed the forest in his dream. Worry clouds Uriah's face. But she recalls her master's wisdom, a lesson learned long ago. The spirits, guardians of balance, their actions purpose. Some events, he taught her, are simply unavoidable. The forest, Medith reveals, is withering. A blight is spreading, he explained, consuming the entire forest. His plea: return to her birthplace, nestled within the sacred tree. Her home lay at the heart of the ancient, hallowed wood. She listened with quiet patience to his urgent request. I am already home, she countered softly. And besides, she added, I'm no longer welcome there. Instead, she urged him to evacuate the other. They needed to escape the encroaching curse. Her master's worry was palpable. Remaining in the forest meant certain death for her. This, she declared, is simply nature's course. Imminent peril held no fear for her. Perhaps, just perhaps, she knew, a savior would emerge. With that, she welcomed the gentle breeze. It was a hopeful sign, a promise of better days to come. What do you think of the tea? She inquired casually. I added a special ingredient, she revealed, grasshopper wing. Her master promptly spat out the tea. For a fleeting moment, The reason for the other elves' aversion to her presence in the capital became crystal clear. He'd forgotten that even among her own kind, acceptance was a rare commodity. She was far from popular, even within her elven community. Branded a heretic, a psychopath, she was ostracized and feared. Our protagonist ventured deeper into the forest's embrace. The demon lord hadn't anticipated finding inhabitants in this secluded domain, especially elves, creatures of myth, elusive and rarely seen. Their scarcity stemmed from the devastating aftermath of the Great War. Forced into hiding, their existence had faded into legend for many. A stroke of luck, the protagonist mused. His battle with the monstrous entities had yielded an unexpected discovery. Forest spirits, indicators of elven presence, were nearby. Where these ethereal beings resided, elves were sure to follow. The demon lord inquired about the prospect of an encounter. Perhaps, avoidance was the wiser course of action. The pointy-eared folk were not among her favorite, nor were they particularly high on the protagonist's list either. Ganapolo's humiliation of the entire elven race was a lingering memory, a mere glimpse into those memories. And the demon lord already felt the urge to maintain a significant distance. At last, they reached the elven forest, a place distinctly unlike any other. The forest guardians approached them, unafraid and curious. This unusual trust stems from Oscar's innate affinity for spirit. These creatures seemed to favor him even more than the elves themselves. This connection was forged through trial by fire, a grueling ordeal Oscar endured. The memory of this arduous process still ignites a flicker of anger within him. His mentor, the goddess who guided him, was once human herself. The demon lord is genuinely awestruck. Oscar's bond with these beings is remarkable, especially without a formal contract. Such a powerful, uncontracted connection is truly rare. She longs for the same endearing affection from the adorable creature. The question now is, how will Oscar locate the moongraph? It seems an impossible task alone, until a small creature approaches. It alights gently on Oscar's outstretched hand. The creature carries something unbelievable, something the demon lord can scarcely process. It's precisely what they've been searching for. They've discovered the hidden garden of the moon goddess. Oscar expresses his gratitude to the tiny spirit for its invaluable guidance. An abundance of seeds awaits them within the garden, intended for region-wide planting. But she was captivated by our hero's action. The connection to spirits originates from mana. Sufficient power grants anyone the ability to converse with these ethereal beings. However, spiritual affinity dictates the pace of progress. With our protagonist's exceptional ability, he can summon any spirit imaginable. The demon lord's curiosity is piqued. Will he forge a pact with a spirit within this sacred space? He explained, the garden belongs to the moon goddess. Thus, as the name suggests, it's inherently spiritual. Therefore, removing plants using spiritual power could provoke the resident spirit. The demon lord is advised to proceed with caution. Switching tongues, the boy inquired, is the spirit present? Can you hear me? His voice resonated through the garden. Water, fire, and other elements materialized before him. The spirits were listening. Our protagonist is now communing with them. They've secured permission to harvest the plant. Haste is essential. They must gather them quickly to avoid any elven encounter. The demon lord questioned his protagonist's apparent lack of nerve. Oscar, however, prioritizes avoiding needless confrontation. Unbeknownst to him, he's already under observation. The unseen watcher finds the entire situation utterly fascinating. The girl's mentor observes her distraction, her inattention to their conversation. The human's venture into the cave astounds her. Even with the spirit's granted permission, a human trespassing on such hallowed elven ground remains shocking. And yet, the boy not only collected the plants but also conversed with the spirit. She grapples with how to process this unprecedented event. The situation defies belief. She doubts even her own master would find it credible. He, however, senses her inner turmoil and inquires about it. She questions his rejection of her meticulously prepared tea. She invested considerable effort into crafting it. The locusts were dried for over a week. Her master, however, seems utterly indifferent to her hard work. He claimed to be feeling unwell. She, ever resourceful, offered a remedy. Suspecting something unorthodox, he resisted her offer. He dodged her persistent attempts to help. She posed a curious question. What was more plausible? A human conversing with spirits in the sacred garden, or a powerful being awakening from a long slumber? The master, perplexed, questioned her seriousness. He wondered if she was truly being earnest. Statistically, she began, the latter is more probable. Dragons, despite legend, still exist. Humans communicating with spirits? Unheard of. Isolated incidents, perhaps, but not with forest spirits. Enlightened, she beamed. She announced her impending departure. She believed she had found the key. The village's salvation was within reach. She held the answer to their plight. The master awaits her solution. What has she devised? Meanwhile, our protagonist is taken aback, utterly surprised. A task projected to span 4 days, concluded in a mere half. Such potent motivation fueled their effort. With that resolved, their attention shifts to the moongrass. The residents are put to work, and as they toil, whispers and rumors ripple through the region. Skepticism lingers. Will the planted seeds truly sprout? In this unforgiving soil, full growth takes 4 to 5 grueling months. The plants crave the touch of spirits to blossom. Yet, their plan revolves around selling the plants themselves, not the flowers. All proceeds as intended. A worried guard observes the proceeding. No one in this town possesses the knowledge to cultivate such flora. Those that have sprouted now slowly fade and wither. The protagonist urges patience, imploring him to wait. The gods, he assures, will bless this parched land with rain once more. Days slip by, and the guard returns, bearing news of scorching heat. But Oscar urged him to maintain composure. As foretold, the rain arrived. The guard was visibly taken aback, and so, Oscar continued his mastery over the region's humidity. 4 months flew by, a mere blink of an eye. Whispers reached the capital. Word spread to other kingdoms, moongrass, impossibly, was being cultivated. On that continent? Sheer lunacy. Yet, the land's own lord championed its planting. They pinpointed the source, the Hines region, the once forsaken land, visited by mages years prior. Cursed, it was called. Now, rain graced the abandoned land once more. A woman remarked that land's revival would require a decade, at least, and that the lord of that land, the Ron kingdom's first prince, had he taken leave of his senses? Some nobles concurred. But those with magical insight, they grew contemplative. He instructed his servant to maintain secrecy. The nobility, he reasoned, needn't be privy to every detail. Enter Harrison, the wise sage. Leader of the Red Tower, he senses a significant development unfolding. Intrigue brews in the continent's eastern reaches, demanding their attention. Preparation is paramount, he declared. In the blink of an eye, everything changed. Desolation transformed into a vibrant, blossoming landscape. Seeds were scarce, a precious commodity. Yet, against the odds, they achieved the impossible. Amy reports a current stockpile of 20,000 moongrass leaves. Their goal, to harvest an additional 10,000. At market value, a mere 100 gold coins buys 4 leaves. Projecting the sale of 10,000 leaves yields a potential profit of 5,000 platinum coins. 1 gold coin sustains a family for 2 weeks. 5 provide a month of comfortable living. The economic implications are staggering. The demon lord watches with keen interest. What will happen when the entire harvest hits the market? He wondered. Their strategy? A public unveiling, unlike the secrecy surrounding spirit stones. And it worked. Despite the doubters who dismissed him as a fool, he's now poised to capitalize on the widespread attention. With preparations meticulously finalized, everything is set to send shockwaves across the continent. Moongrass leaves, a rare commodity, grace the market twice monthly, but the supply is woefully inadequate for the demand across both continents. Its importance stems from its use in virtually every form of magic. This scarcity presents a significant challenge. Our protagonist, ever the strategist, unleashed another rumor, timed perfectly with the release of the leaf. The rumor claimed he was bedridden after attempting to cultivate the seeds himself. The demon lord, they say, is blinded by greed. But sometimes, such a facade is necessary. Flooding the market with a scarce resource inevitably drives down its price. Caution is key to prevent devaluing the leaves entirely. That's not his current objective. Profit is his primary motivator. A crowd gathers at the palace gates, eager for an audience. Everyone seeks a meeting with the enigmatic figure. The rumor ignited chaos. The region spiraled into disarray. Merchants flooded the land, their numbers overwhelming. Oscar, seeking respite, instructed his maid to feign his illness. But the merchants, driven by avarice, demanded to see the good. They were, in essence, ravenous for profit, barbaric in their pursuit. Oscar, facing the inevitable, convened with the townspeople. Their primary concern, the state of security amidst the influx. Everyone was working tirelessly, stretched to their limit. Yet, they were critically understaffed, struggling to cope. The sheer volume of visitors had brought the city to its knees. Oscar issued a directive: isolate any suspicious individual. To avert disaster, courtesy must be maintained, but understanding every individual wasn't a requirement. Vacant houses were repurposed, hastily converted for lodging. The effort, however, proved insufficient, the demand too great. Oscar proposed a solution: utilize his stockpile of 10. Resell them, he suggested, capitalizing on the need. His recommendation set a premium and inflated price. The meeting concluded, its purpose seemingly served. Yet, Oscar requested Bigo's presence. A lingering matter remained. The captain remains clueless about the Lord's summon. Our protagonist requests a brief audience with him. That evening, the tavern welcomes the captain with open arms. Offered a drink, he politely declines for the present, suggesting another time. He advises everyone to enjoy themselves responsibly. Later that night, in his bed, utter exhaustion claims him. His days are overflowing with responsibility. From drilling soldiers and overseeing security to enduring etiquette lessons, he's constantly occupied. He's never experienced such a demanding schedule. A message arrives. Someone seeks an audience with the captain. Prepare for a meeting. The individual's name, Halle's. A level 4 expert hailing from the Green Tower. Halle's apologizes for the intrusion. The captain, understanding the current regional turmoil, accepts the apology. The mage acknowledges the captain's protective effort, even before the area achieved its current prosperity. Truly remarkable. A man as steadfast and true as Captain Mustache. Recognizing the flattery, Captain Mustache inquired about the mage's purpose. What is it you seek, mage? An audience with the lord of these lands, the mage replied. He turned to the captain, seeking guidance. Is there any means of arranging such a meeting? I'm afraid that may prove difficult, the captain responded. The lord is unwell, overworked. His health is paramount, you see. The mage nodded, acknowledging the gravity of the situation. He then produced a heavy, clinking bag. Perhaps, he suggested, there's something we can do to expedite matter? The captain eyed the considerable sum with a flicker of interest. I'm afraid I don't accept bribes, he declared sternly. Think of it as a gift, the mage smoothly countered. A gesture of goodwill, captain. I typically refuse such generosity. The mage pressed the small gift upon him, insisting. A realization dawned on Mustache. Events were unfolding precisely as the Lord had foreseen. Their private conversation had a purpose. The captain, he explained, would be inundated with requests. Everyone would be vying for the prince's attention. This made the captain a prime target for manipulation. Bribes would be inevitable. The prince's instruction, choose wisely. Compile a list of those with the most outrageous demand. Report these back to the prince directly. And, crucially, accept every bribe offer. Feign compliance with their request. Show them a specific item, a small vial. A vial purportedly worth a king's ransom, 100 gold coin. The objective wasn't to sell. It was to ignite rumors. Inflate the vial's perceived value. Keep them captivated, lingering in the territory. The mage's reaction to the vial, instant astonishment. The captain explained, it was a product under development, soon to be available for purchase. Showing it, therefore, posed no risk. The mage recognized the item's exceptional quality without a doubt. He'd never encountered anything comparable in this region of the continent. Its effectiveness was simply unparalleled. It outperformed anything they were accustomed to buy at least twofold. He needed these items, and he needed them first. He would also sing their praises far and wide. The captain guaranteed consistent quality across all products. Substandard items, he explained, were repurposed as fertilizer. The mage considered this an appalling waste. He discovered they had a stockpile of 10,000 units of the potion. The sheer production volume hinted at a staggering amount of discarded material. He deduced that the rejects likely equaled the accepted potion. This boy's resolve was undeniable. His accomplishments demanded acknowledgement. The captain revealed the specific sample was destined for auction. However, the mage understood sales would continue. This news filled the mage with both exhilaration and anxiety. He knew someone would gain preferential access to these coveted goods. Upon departing, he verified one crucial detail. The captain would be handsomely rewarded for his shared intelligence. With a handshake, the deal was sealed, and he departed for his carriage. The captain, baffled, replayed his flawless performance in his mind. The following day, he sought an audience with the prince. Burning with curiosity, he needed to understand the prince's insight. The prince's response was simple: it's just the way of the world. The pursuit of wealth is a powerful motivator, he explained. They're merely capitalizing on the current circumstances. The captain's admiration deepened. Presenting the amassed bribes to the prince, he confessed his gain. The prince, however, directed him to distribute the wealth among the guard. A bonus, he declared, for their service, to use as they see fit. Despite the captain's protests, the prince insisted. The lion's share of the profits will be yours regardless, he assured him. The demon lord pondered the boy's ability to withstand the impending pressure. He emphasized the fierce competition already brewing among the buyers. A bidding war was on the horizon. Soon, the territory would see a surge in residents. This influx would, in turn, attract a wave of merchants. Land sales within the city would skyrocket, and consequently, the population would swell even further. Moongrass, the catalyst for this incredible transformation. It's remarkable to think this land was once barren and unproductive. News of this miraculous development is sweeping the continent. Other magic towers are vying for a piece of the action, eager to invest in the city. Perhaps the Red Tower should follow suit. But one man remains cautious, a voice of prudence amidst the excitement. He expresses his concerns to his master, a sense of unease lingering. Word has reached him that the prince intends to sell the moongrass via auction. From their vantage point, this strategy could drastically devalue the plant. Initially, the price will soar, driven by high demand. But soon, affordability will become the norm, the market flooded with supply. Expiration dates on imported goods serve a purpose, maintaining high prices. Artificial scarcity keeps the market lucrative. The elder mage, however, views the prince as a forward-thinking leader. He questions his disciple, probing his understanding of the city's population. The answer, a mere few hundred inhabitants, sparks a realization. This presents a golden opportunity for territorial investment. A swift and decisive move is required, because the prince has masterfully captured the attention of many from every corner of the continent. A truly masterful strategy. Resale won't change the limited supply, the quantity remains fixed. The mage instructed his disciple to prepare financially for the coming changes. He stressed the prince's apparent disregard for potential failure. He acts as if failure isn't an option. Moongrass is merely the opening gambit. He has much more in store. He's already captured significant attention. Forging a connection with this young man is essential. The disciple, upon reading, received orders to secure a meeting with the prince. The mage desires an audience. The sage's mind drifted to past events. He remembered the princess's inquiry. Her question, could a man devoid of mana strike down a vampire with a blade? Her expression was blank as she posed the question. The man who achieved this feat. He wielded the sacred sword without a contract, an unthinkable feat. At the time, it seemed like pure madness. Now, he realizes it's only achievable by the sword god himself, or, it seems, one of his disciples. A truly unique individual walks among us. Strangely enough, the prince predicted this peculiarity. The region is experiencing a surge in popularity. This influx of newcomers is sparking territorial dispute. Amy reports a land conflict, two groups vying for the same plot. The prince's solution? A public auction. The butler inquires about the maximum bid. The prince's directive, no limit, aim for the stars. Fritz observes, land equates to wealth. Our hero revels in his recent financial success. He's rolling in it. A letter arrives, addressed to him personally. The prince questions its importance. It bears the royal seal. In the city square, the auction commences with an opening bid of 90 gold coins. A cloaked figure, a young man, swiftly countered the bid. A mage from the prestigious Green Tower entered the fray, joining the auction. With each escalating offer, the excitement in the room intensified. A palpable rivalry crackled between the competing mages. The tension mounted until a staggering bid of 130 gold coins was declared. This sparked a heated exchange, igniting arguments among the bidders. Amy, unfazed, pressed on with the auction despite the erupting conflict. The auction continued amidst the backdrop of a brewing brawl. Without a higher bid, the land would be sold at the current price. The agreed-upon sum hung in the air, awaiting a challenge. The commotion persisted as some in the square continued their quarrel. Confident in his victory, the mage anticipated claiming the coveted plot. Amy prepared to finalize the sale when a new contender emerged. Our protagonist watched, captivated by the unfolding drama. He marveled at the astonishing price of 150 gold coins per vial. An era of prosperity begins. A trade guild secured 5,000 vials of the coveted elixir. The auction's resounding success echoes through the city. The remaining vials flew off the shelves at 130 gold coins apiece, a testament to their allure. A complete sellout. Demand has been insatiable. Should this trend persist, the city's coffers will swell, potentially hitting an astounding 1 million gold coins annually. This will position it as the wealthiest territory within the entire kingdom. The cultivation of moongrass will continue, ensuring a steady supply. However, for now, they'll resist the urge to expand production. A shift in focus, they will now prioritize planting food crop. The prince, wise in his governance, seeks not to overexploit this boom. He will maintain the current course, resisting avarice. The city will undergo a transformation, a reorganization of its very fabric. Redundancies will be eliminated, streamlining its operation. A royal summons arrived, beckoning the prince to the capital. This message was delivered in the days leading up to the auction. Its contents were strikingly concise. The prince's accomplishments were lauded, his achievements recognized. He was requested to grace the capital with his presence for a brief sojourn. This visit was intended to formally acknowledge and celebrate his triumph. The very people who banished him now clamor for his return. Our protagonist is hardly impressed by this fickle change of heart. He suspects the political storm surrounding his mother's knight. His intention intensifying, prompting a desperate attempt to deflect attention. The protagonist is intrigued by the letter's curious origin. It bears the king's seal, yet the king's voice is conspicuously absent. The time has come for the next phase of his plan to unfold. Perhaps a visit is in order. A detour to the royal palace might prove insightful. Memories surface. Whispers of a dungeon constructed beneath his very own home. An unfinished task, left incomplete. A proposition, the protagonist should finish it in his stead. And with its completion, ownership, and its potential, would be his. He imagined its ruin, its utter destruction. But the enigmatic man found this notion amusingly naive, for he doubted anyone possessed the stubbornness to truly unravel what he had meticulously begun. The boy will soon discover the truth, the moment he crosses the threshold. Should he succeed in this endeavor, he gains the freedom to shape its destiny. Concern arose, would the prince fare well on a solitary journey? Yet, this very solitude was his deepest desire. The loyal butler bid him farewell, wishing him a journey free from peril. The prince entrusted Amy's well-being to the butler's care. The butler reassured him, easing his worries with a promise of her safety. For she is a woman of remarkable caliber, disciplined and strong. Furthermore, her intellect and education are beyond compare. From our protagonist's perspective, harmony between the two is an assured outcome. And so, their expedition presses onward, towards the capital city. They traverse the path, their steeds carrying them forward. The demon lord observes a divergence. He travels in the opposite way. First, a destination calls to him, a pause before his ultimate path. A place of renown, preserved meticulously for the sake of knowledge. More than that, it holds a distinct and profound significance. This is the city of Surtur, the divine blacksmith of legend. The demon lord knows the weight of this name, the power it holds. The protagonist is certain, their paths have crossed before. Within this city lies the legacy of that man, he declared, crafted from the very essence of Caldera itself. Their entry into this place will not be an easy feat, though the landscape may transform over decades. This city has endured for millennia, a testament to time. It now stands as a key location within a rival state. This territory is under the dominion of a hostile family. Barrett dismounts, ready to approach the imposing city gate. He senses an immediate hostility permeating the atmosphere. The noble factions in this area have likely been disrupted, their power in flux. Despite this tension, the queue for entry into the city stretches far. Our protagonist presents an ID, declaring himself a mercenary. This is an identity he meticulously crafted. Being recognized was a risk he couldn't afford. But such concerns are premature. That's not his immediate problem. He's confident in his ability to gain entry without incident, only to be immediately intercepted by armed guard. A palpable tension grips the protagonist. They know his true purpose, to explore the newly discovered labyrinth. They scoff, declaring it far too dangerous for someone of his ilk. Soldiers mock the protagonist, their laughter stinging. He now understands, something deeply amiss is stirring within this city. Our protagonist, settling onto a rock, surveyed the scene unfolding before him. The reality on the ground was harsher than he had anticipated. An elderly figure approached the observing protagonist. The old man recognized the youth's bewilderment, a clear sign of unfamiliarity. Clearly, the young man was an outsider, a traveler from afar. The prince inquired, seeking an explanation for the situation. The old man gestured towards a queue where individuals were paying for passage. It dawned on him, a toll was being levied for access. The old man offered a simple, disheartening truth. This was the norm. The law that permits such extortion should be eradicated, he declared. Observing the young man's evident distress, the old man acted with compassion. He pressed a handful of coins into the young man's palm, a means to facilitate his passage. A modest offering, yet one that might lighten the journey ahead. His plea was simple: do not invite trouble, young man. He brushed aside any concerns about repayment, for in the young man's face, he saw a poignant echo of his own grandson. The protagonist, momentarily speechless, struggled to find the right word. Gratitude washed over him, a profound appreciation for the old man's kindness. He began. Those coins would be better spent on a gift for the old man's grandson. He simply won't be needing the money where he's going. A wave of worry washed over the old man for the impetuous youth. He feared the young man might be driven to some rash act. Meanwhile, the guards noted his continued presence. The young man extended his hand, demanding the return of the illegally seized toll. This toll, he declared, was unlawful. Its imposition was permissible only for grand processions and commercial caravans. Furthermore, pocketing the proceeds was a crime of personal enrichment. The guards gravely underestimated this young man before them. They remained blissfully ignorant of his true identity. Our protagonist then issued a final warning. Return the money, confess your transgressions, he urged. Though he knew such words were likely to fall on deaf ears, the guard's response was mocking laughter at his stand. Their mirth ended abruptly as a sword's point met his neck. He stated there would be no repercussion should they choose to extinguish the life of this mere mercenary. The protagonist now understood their resolve was unyielding. He He merely awaited the green light, a confirmation of escalation. Sensing the shift towards danger, a possible descent into chaos, the elders sought to intervene, to quell the brewing storm. Yet, the guards dismissed the old man's words, their ears deaf to his plea. He realized he too could become a casualty, collateral damage in their brutal game. One guard, fueled by malice, resolved to extinguish the old man's light. His blade arced downwards, a deadly crescent aimed at the elder's frail form. But our hero intervened swiftly, disarming the attacker with decisive force. Who could have foreseen such craven behavior from a supposed protector? To raise a weapon against an old, defenseless man, an act of utter depravity. The poor elder, shielding himself with trembling hand, remained oblivious to the swift justice that followed. Our protagonist affirmed the gravity of the transgression. Such a vile act constitutes a capital crime throughout the land, and for such a transgression, there exists but one fitting retribution. Our protagonist's blade was already bared, gleaming with righteous intent. The price for such crimes? Swift and absolute, immediate execution. The bald man's head now lies severed from his body. The onus now shifts to those complicit, those who sanctioned this barbarity. He demanded the immediate presentation of the one who bore ultimate responsibility. Instead, he found himself encircled by the guards who still stood. He perceived a chilling truth: these men, too, were eager to lose their head. He conceded his error, a failure to reveal his identity sooner, but his words were cut short. A guard lunged, attempting an attack. The assault, however, met with failure, for a strike requires hands, and hands were absent. The protagonist issued a stark warning: the next cut would claim a head. He declared that he would not repeat this. Again, he demanded an audience with the one in command. The commotion drew attention, and someone approached to investigate. This man, of modest stature, was none other than Viscount Gerd. He had come to quell the disturbance. Before the Viscount could draw near, the protagonist tossed a formal document. He urged the Viscount to choose wisely, and not to underestimate the prince, merely because he lacked a guard escort. The Viscount swiftly recognized the prince's true identity. The prince, at last, felt relief at being acknowledged. The Viscount knelt before the prince. The Viscount attempted to justify the territory's struggles with a weary explanation, but our protagonist saw through the facade. The presence of renowned ruins hinted at a different reality. The Viscount never conceived that the prince would travel incognito. Such reckless reprimands smacked of outright tyranny. However, the prince had not anticipated the Viscount's expectation of a formal declaration of his arrival. He declared the Duke would not overlook this incident. His words only deepened the mire and fueled the protagonist's growing ire. Such is the state of most territory. Even inspectors, fearing retribution, would turn a blind eye. The Viscount extended an invitation to his estate. "You won't regret it," he vowed. But our protagonist had a question: had the Viscount heard the rumors of a bloodthirsty madman? With those words, he severed the noble's head. Percival lauded the cut, a clean, flawlessly executed strike. And so, our protagonist presses onward, journeying deeper. 10 years, the old man revealed, a decade having passed. Life was serene, he lamented, under the Baron's reign. But the exploitation, he continued, only intensified. A cruel victimization, inflicted upon their own people. That, he confessed, is how I lost my only son. The boy understood. The old man spoke not of a grandson, but his child. He apologized for the fabrication, for the lie he had spun. But the protagonist simply stated, there is nothing to forgive. Knowing the old man's character, he surmised his son must have been a truly good soul. At long last, they reached their destination, their journey's end. Our protagonist stands in awe, admiring the sprawling vista. And here, it is said, Valhalla should begin. What a dreadful name, he exclaims, if it arises again. I'm renaming it Detroit, he declares, that famed ruin. The old man inquired, a hint of worry in his tone. Would the incident with the Viscount bring him trouble? But the prince reassured him. The Duke, burdened by graver concerns, yearned for salvation. His son's vengeance weighed heavily on his heart. The old man, with heartfelt gratitude, offered his thanks. He vowed to forever remember their profound kindness. Our protagonist, with quiet resolve, simply wished. He hoped the Duke would continue his journey on the righteous path, and with those unspoken hopes, he bid the man farewell. Percival, reflecting, found the story deeply disheartening. He earnestly wished for brighter days for the man, a future our protagonist had, in part, helped make possible. Now, they stand within the enigmatic ruin. Our protagonist tirelessly continues his exploration of the ancient site. Truly magnificent, he mused, consulting his personal note. Berserker hesitated, unsure if he should voice his thought. He suspected nothing further remained to be unearthed within. That, our protagonist countered, is merely the surface. He seeks a secret yet concealed within these walls. A hidden password lies dormant within this place. A revelation that piqued the demon lord's curiosity. The boy has found it. The entire structure is ingeniously crafted, a monumental puzzle in its own right. Its codes, however, remain elusive, visible only from a commanding height. This ingenious design is the work of the master himself. Undoubtedly, others have stumbled upon this secret in ages past. Yet, our protagonist may be the sole living soul who truly comprehends its intricacies. He may very well be the only one with the skill to unearth this fabled treasure. The clandestine entrance lies hidden at the anvil, the heart of the plaza. Access, however, is guarded by a cryptic password. And now, he stands on the precipice of claiming the legacy of the forged deity. The moment of discovery for the One Piece is finally at hand. Mysterious stairs materialize, granting him entry to the long-concealed dungeon. Perseeker envisioned a trove of untold wonders lurking within its depth. The entire domain exudes masterful design and purpose. An ethereal magic pulses and swirls through the very air. Had he faced the master himself? This hidden sanctuary might have remained lost for eternity. Even the formidable demon lord concurred with this assessment. Upon discovering a chamber, our protagonist was struck with awe. The space emanated an uncanny sense of vitality, as if possessing its own sentience. This space bore no resemblance to a dungeon in his lifetime. People deemed Sir's behavior eccentric, perhaps even mad. He took up residence in his forge after Harris's passing. This was his dedicated workspace until the very end. Our protagonist continued his meticulous inspection of the chamber. He knew the treasures of his departed friend were concealed within. Finally, his gaze landed upon a substantial chest. To the demon lord, it possessed the aura of an altar. The protagonist felt a sense of bewilderment. Could Sir have possibly revered a god he outwardly scorned? As he moved within the space, a remarkable event began to unfold. A radiant light emanated from the chest. They found themselves inside what resembled a secure vault. The demon lord was captivated. He'd never witnessed such intricate craftsmanship. The chest's intense luminescence persisted. Drawn by the light, the protagonist approached it. Among the dwarves, he held another distinguished title. It was bestowed upon him for his unwavering dedication, 1,000 days of tireless work. He was celebrated as the demon of the forge. He stood apart from those who bragged about merely striking metal correctly. Serta pushed past his limitation. He imbued his creation with mana itself. This masterpiece would be completed after his passing, his final legacy. The chest's energy signature shifted dramatically. A radiant yellow glow finally emanated from within. Our hero succeeded in opening the enigmatic chest. Inside, he discovered a blade destined to cleave through the living, a weapon of vibrant light. But the chest held another secret, another blade. This one designed to sever the threads of the dead. Neither blade was fully realized, yet they were twin swords, bound by destiny. The system confirmed their origins, the ultimate creation of a legendary blacksmith. Their true power, however, remained veiled. Their very spirits, their personalities, were yet to awaken. This revelation gave our protagonist pause, a moment of contemplation. But it was, in a way, expected. Such depth was characteristic of his blacksmith friend's work. These blades held power comparable to volcanic caldera. They were the epitome of divine sword, forged specifically to be wielded by an arrow. These blades are ingeniously designed, adapting to the very essence of their wielder. Their true purpose? To find their destined master. A perfect match, it seems, for our hero. At first glance, they appear complete, but a closer examination revealed a hidden truth. Subtle refinements were needed to truly finish them. He now sought a fire of unique intensity to complete his work. Ordinary flames simply wouldn't suffice for this task. A fire burning 100 times hotter was required. Such power resided only with the dwarves. Masters of their craft, such fires were their specialty. Our protagonist, then, needed to seek guidance. He turned to someone who wished him well in the capital. The young man expressed his gratitude for their direction. The purpose of his summons to the capital remained a mystery to our hero. The letter hinted at a congratulatory reception, but that much was already clear. Lunar Grass held immense financial potential, and our protagonist was already reaping profits greater than the kingdom's entire treasury. The colossal taxes he remitted spoke volumes. Surely, the aristocracy would be vying for his allegiance, each eager to enlist him in their rank. At least, this was the logical conclusion he drew. Little did our hero anticipate the magnitude of the attention he would attract. His intent was never to trigger such a continental upheaval. As he traversed the palace corridors, he found himself greeted by the palace staff, to whom the young prince responded with courtesy. It had been some time since their paths last crossed. The butler remarked upon his considerable growth. Rumors had reached his ears, whispering of the prince's remarkable entrepreneurial success. He attributed his accomplishments to the favor of the god. However, a palpable unease in the atmosphere piqued his curiosity. The butler revealed that long-held secrets had surfaced. The king's fury was unleashed, leading to the downfall of many nobles. With the king already retired to his chamber, the butler advised postponing the audience until the morrow. Even with the overwhelming evidence at the knight's disposal, success hinged upon the king's cooperation. These unfolding events weighed heavily on the young prince's mind. Fate then orchestrated an encounter with a rather peculiar individual. Their eyes locked, a silent exchange unfolding in that brief moment. It was his brother, no less. The embodiment of envy itself. Never did our protagonist imagine crossing paths with Carlos at this junction. He challenged the boy, inquiring if he had anything to impart. The response, all was well. He retorted, labeling his brother exceedingly reckless, especially for a mere upstart who'd stumbled into a single successful venture. Pure luck, he implied. Not genuine success, the protagonist refuted internally. The envious brother journeyed all this way merely to utter those words. Jealousy, it seemed, was the underlying motive. He remained oblivious to the prince's accomplishment, and for that ignorance, he would forever bear the title of fool. These words ignited the envious brother's fury. He lunged, attempting to seize the protagonist's neck. An attack the protagonist effortlessly parried. He declared the envious brother possessed nothing. He'd overlooked a crucial element. He's coddled by everyone, pampered beyond measure. Surely, he should grasp the gravity of this situation at the very least. Fueled by envy's fire, he lunged at our protagonist in a fit of rage. But he's tragically inept, if not for your colossal folly. Those arrows would never have flown 6 years prior. Now, the protagonist's patience has reached its breaking point. Responding to this blatant aggression, he seized the envious one's arm with a fierce grip. He was poised to slam him headfirst into the unyielding earth. The envious one glimpsed the impending impact, his face meeting its doom. But our protagonist, ever in control, checked the fall. He declared those words blasphemous against the king, a sacrilegious affront. He stated his actions stemmed from the brother's birth from a mere concubine. He's forgetting that royal blood courses through his own veins as well. To bring his brother to heel, to instill discipline, he stomped upon his chest with calculated force. After releasing him, he inquired if pain was felt, because inflicting pain was precisely the intent. But then he realized his veiled illusions were lost on his brother. Secrets so deep, not even a narrator could unearth them. Even so, the boy visibly shrunk, perceiving that a mere flick to the forehead possessed a force greater than a punch, delivering palpable pain. His agonizing scream reverberated, echoing throughout the corridor's expanse. Blood now trickled from the boy's forehead. He grappled with the impossibility of it all. Our protagonist inquired if he desired another. The envious one stood paralyzed with terror. He issued a threat of retribution, vowing the prince would never again inflict such pain. The envious one then fled the scene. The prince responded with amusement, a mocking laugh. The demon lord questioned, "You'd truly let him escape with just a flick?" But the protagonist's actions held a deeper intrigue, a hidden layer, for it was no ordinary flick. Perhaps it's best not to reveal that Percival took note. At times, he embodies the persona of a villain. Either way, the protagonist's mirth was short-lived. The situation demanded gravity. His destructive tendencies must cease, here and now. Burning with insatiable curiosity, the demon lord craved knowledge of the protagonist's deed. He unleashed a spell upon the boy, one deemed a universal transgression. Yet, his actions extended beyond this. He bestowed upon him a subtle gift. Its unveiling awaited the proceedings of the Moros' assembly. Several nobles voiced their profound admiration for the boy's accomplishment. His efforts in that devastated region were truly remarkable. Furthermore, he had augmented the kingdom's coffers. The cacophony of voices drowned out the king's thought. The nobles engaged in fervent private discourse. They excluded the very individual responsible for their present circumstances. Knight Patrice, too, was absent from this gathering. Such matters held no allure for him. Persuckers struggled to fathom how the kingdom managed to function. Such disarray defied comprehension. The protagonist, meanwhile, contemplated the prospect of opening a restaurant. He recognized the immense profitability of such an endeavor. Yet, the intricacies of business management eluded him. A hush fell as someone bid the nobles to silence. The king decreed they should celebrate the prince's triumph, acknowledging every single thing he achieved entirely on his own merit. Our protagonist responded with simple conviction. He did what was necessary. The king emphatically seconded this sentiment. His progress, the king declared, was worth a decade of toil. He then inquired, "What reward does the prince desire?" Knowing the nobles would seize upon any request, the protagonist claimed nothing yet came to mind. He asked for a little more time to consider, a request the king readily granted. Percival praised the wisdom of asking for time to reflect. The nobles, it seems, had designs on seizing control of lunar grass production. They eyed it as a glittering commercial prize. It's clear their ambition for this prize was unwavering. Then, a voice cut through the air. One man declared he needed to ascertain something before the discourse could proceed. That man was Duke Barrett. Duke Barrett, whose lands are rife with corruption. His words cut to the core. The nobles, he argued, overlooked a fundamental principle. The crucial art of harnessing the plan for the kingdom's prosperity eluded them. The protagonist had an epiphany. He was, undeniably, a figure who commanded authority over the aristocracy. His proposition was clear: the business model forged by the prince should remain untouched by government overreach. A proposition undeniably audacious in its scope. He posed the pointed question: would Marcus Ferrandus sacrifice his personal wealth, all for the greater good of the kingdom? Of course. The fate of the business, therefore, rested with the prince and the king. Their decision alone would shape its future, not the aristocrats, at least not initially. On the surface, it appeared he was championing our protagonist. Yet, the prince remained unconvinced, seeing through the facade. It was mere sophistry, a veil for the man's persistent defense of his own agenda. New business models, he insisted, should not be stifled. Then, the boy understood, this was precisely the Duke's veiled intention. But there was a deeper game being played, something more critical at stake. A mediator was needed, a figure to navigate this treacherous landscape. Our protagonist's realization dawned: it was all a carefully crafted spectacle. His concern was evident, and then, he produced a letter. It was a missive from the Holy Kingdom's priest. Its contents took even the king by surprise. The prince was being summoned to the Holy Kingdom. Their purpose? To examine his stigma, and potentially consecrate him as a saint. The letter ignited fury in one aristocrat's heart. The prince is the territory's heir. After all, he shouldn't be dispatched to the Holy Land. Other nobles joined the fray, adding their voices. The Holy Kingdom, they pointed out, rivals the empire itself in might. But the aristocrats stood firm: they are not vassal. The prince shouldn't be handed over like a mere tribute. The prince himself sought clarity. Was this journey truly necessary? For his stigma to gain recognition, that is. And what fate awaited him after sainthood was declared? The Duke urged him to see the forest, not just the trees, given his questionable royal lineage. And that's a fact he shouldn't overlook. Defying the Holy Kingdom yields nothing but ill fortune. Yet, our protagonist remains seemingly unmoved. The nobles pressed for answers. What fate awaited the prince's domain? And what would become of the lunar grass production? If he were declared a sink, what then? His own lands would be forfeit, no longer under his control. This revelation sent tremors through the noble rank, but it was all a calculated move, a piece of a larger puzzle. Because now, the question loomed: who would inherit the lordship of that land? Observing this elaborate political dance, our protagonist found himself genuinely amused, for Nami truly grasped the Duke's underlying objective. The prince's territory had become essential, crucial to the kingdom's prospect. It couldn't simply be entrusted to just anyone. And in Nami's view, only one candidate was deemed worthy of the position: the envious second prince, driven by ambition. Our protagonist deduced the scheme: privatize the lucrative enterprise, and then, gift it to his jealous sibling. A plan for the Duke's own enrichment as well. The grand spectacle, it was all a carefully crafted act. The envious one was deluded, believing that vast lands would soon be his. But the protagonist's true play was yet to unfold. The second prince stepped forward, seeking the king's coveted favor. All the while, our protagonist observed, a silent puppeteer. But as the prince began to speak, a sound emerged, strangely amphibian, like a croaking frog. An unsettling hush descended upon the grand hall. He stood, paralyzed, before the regal gaze of the king. Everyone was frozen in place, utterly bewildered. A sense of utter incomprehension gripped the room. Our protagonist fought valiantly to suppress his mounting laughter. The envious one sensed that something was profoundly amiss. Yet, the compulsion to unleash bizarre sounds proved irresistible. And thus, in the heart of the hall, he unleashed a cacophony of strange noises. He mimicked creatures of the wild, leaving the nobles in even deeper astonishment. Even the formidable demon queen found this spectacle hilariously entertaining. But the protagonist cautioned that the true hilarity was yet to come. She would soon find even greater cause for amusement. The Duke, perplexed, inquired as to the prince's strange behavior. For even buffoonery has its limit. He attempted to articulate himself, but a compulsion for peculiar sounds seized him. Finally, the king, dismissing it as jest, rebuked him. Thinking it a mere jest, the envious prince struggled to explain, but words morphed into the quacking of a duck mid-sentence. Then, the guttural barks of a dog erupted. The king, his patience thoroughly frayed by the spectacle, banished the prince from his sight, summoning the guard. They were commanded to escort the prince to his chamber. There, he would remain, confined until the king's decree shifted. The envious one pleaded for his father to reconsider. Yet the animalistic sounds poured forth uncontrollably. The sheer bizarreness of the scene ignited genuine embarrassment within the king. The envious prince, in a desperate bid, attempted to flee the guard. His hat, dislodged in the chaos, tumbled to the floor. The nobles, turning to witness the commotion, were struck dumb with astonishment. Not even the demon queen had envisioned such an outlandish outcome. This was the very scenario our protagonist had cryptically alluded to. His brother's scalp had become the kingdom's latest barren landscape, a polished dome of skin, reflecting light like a celestial body. His secret was out, the truth shone brightly on his head. The prince declared, His brother was yet too green, too unseasoned, to command a territory. The Duke's gaze flickered back, his machinations laid bare, crumbled to dust. The prince met his gaze with a smile, genuine and unnerving. He pressed the matter. When did a duke's station supersede that of the king, pray tell? The noble feigned ignorance, a charade of innocence. The protagonist offered a refinement of his query, a sharper point. Does this kingdom, he challenged, belong to the duke? The duke parried, claiming the prince had misconstrued his intent. All my actions, he asserted, are for the kingdom's prosperity. The prince countered, then why the secret correspondence with the Holy Kingdom? A missive sent without royal consent? And this, it seemed, was merely the opening salvo. For you have conspired, the prince declared, with every soul in this chamber. The duke warned, tread carefully with such accusation. But our protagonist's tempest was far from spent. He cautioned against premature celebration, declaring the duke shouldn't count his chickens just yet. Furthermore, they had only resolved a single, albeit supposedly crucial, issue during the entire session, a matter deemed to hold significant weight. And in that moment, the duke attempted to seize control of land rightfully belonging to the prince. From our hero's perspective, the Duke reveals himself as nothing more than a scheming conspirator. He even went so far as to suggest capitulating to the demands of the Holy Kingdom. The king, seeking clarity, inquired about the prince's counter-proposal. The Holy Kingdom, too, is a realm inhabited by people. I could engage in discourse with them within their own domain. There existed an artifact, a conduit for communication with a priest from the Holy Kingdom. He introduced himself as vicar, the man in charge of finances within the kingdom. Our protagonist, extending apologies for the abrupt contact, immediately sought the Pope's definitive answer. But what unfolded next was even more astonishing. For even within the Holy Kingdom, a land populated by people, commerce, and trade also thrived, and the prince, ever astute, was attempting to strike a deal. He sought to contact the highest echelons within the Holy Kingdom, but the cleric on the other end conveyed that the matter was being managed by their rank-and-file priest, assuring him it was an isolated incident never to be repeated. There was, they insisted, absolutely no cause for alarm. The protagonist, with his characteristic resolve, successfully navigated his trouble, extending his gratitude to the priest for the assistance. The reply was modest. It was, they said, no trouble at all. He mused on the peculiarity of the kingdom's choice to dispatch the prince to the hallowed grounds of the Holy Land. Yet, he conceded, it wouldn't have been a regrettable acquisition. Ultimately, it's the Holy Kingdom poised to suffer the greater loss. The protagonist conveyed to the Pope that his absence from his domain would jeopardize the Luther grass yield. He pledged to earmark a portion of the harvest, specifically for the Holy Kingdom's need. From that moment forward, they would forge a commercial alliance. The priest expressed profound gratitude for this offer, and the Pope presented a significant request of his own, seeking to retail those very plants within his territory. Special treatment demands a valuable exchange. One must offer to receive. Precisely this principle has been enacted by our protagonist. He now finds himself amidst respected commercial alliances, following all that's transpired. The prince remarked on the apparent simplicity of conducting business. However, Persiker held a differing view. The video concludes here, but to ensure you don't miss the unfolding saga, ring the notification bell and join us next time on Tab's channel.